Chapter 2262. Mixed in with the angels, Murong-Yu observed the people of the mecha universe from afar. Murong-Yu was especially interested in this universe. They were either mechas the size of a normal person or mechas that were tens of thousands of meters tall. There were all kinds of models, but they all had one thing in common. These mechas didn't reveal a powerful aura. From afar, these mechas were like ornamental objects. In fact, Murong-Yu even felt that the cultivators inside the mechas were very weak. The people of the mecha universe relied on mechas. His own cultivation base was not worth mentioning. However, how could these mechas that looked like a pile of scrap metal unleash the power of a Daorel powerhouse? Murong-Yu wasn't doubting the ability of these mechas. He was just curious. At first glance, including the angel universe, there were at least 100 powerhouses of the universes here. Apart from the mecha universe, the other universes had at least one supreme existence at the Dao Ancestor level overseeing them. Only the Dao Ancestor powerhouses of the Holy Universe didn't appear. Therefore, the cultivators of the Sacred Universe and the big shots of the Vice Alliance leaders could only group together and occupy an extremely small space. If a big battle broke out later, these pitiful cultivators of the Holy Universe might not be able to withstand a single blow. If they all died, it would be a huge blow to the Holy Universe. The losses would be so heavy that the Holy Universe couldn't bear it. However, Murong-Yu had no intention of approaching. With his strength, if he approached, he might be wiped out in the end. It was better to mix in with the angels and wait for an opportunity to make a move. He might be able to benefit from it in the end. This was because more than 90% of the cultivators in the Wilderness Temple were angels. Moreover, there were many archangel-level existences. With the help of the angel origin, perhaps the powerhouses of the 100 universes wouldn't be able to defeat the angel universe, even if they joined forces. However, it seemed that the treasure hadn't appeared yet. Therefore, everyone just gathered together and confronted each other. In fact, no matter which side it was, they all wanted to get rid of everyone else. Otherwise, after the treasure appeared, their chances of obtaining it would be greatly reduced. However, if a battle were to break out now, no one was confident that they would be able to clear everyone out before the treasure appeared. Murong-Yu estimated that it was possible for the angels to clear out the other universes, even if the 100 universes had united on the surface. However, the angel universe didn't seem to have any intention of doing so. All of this had nothing to do with Murong-Yu. The more people there were, the more chaotic it would be. The chances of him reaping the benefits would increase. However, the origin of the angel universe kept giving Murong-Yu instructions to kill the invaders. He believed that apart from Murong-Yu, the other angels had also received these instructions. It was just that no one made a move. Time passed day by day, and soon, half a year had passed. For half a year, everyone was in a stalemate, which made Murong-Yu sigh in regret. If he had killed a large number of angels and invaders in the past 6 months, his strength would have increased significantly. On this day, the world suddenly trembled. Then, a dazzling light erupted from one of the origin stars in the depths of the Wilderness Temple. There were countless planets in the Wilderness Temple's star field. The reason why no one had made a move before was that they didn't know which origin star the treasure was hidden on. Now that the treasure had appeared, everyone knew where it was located. Therefore, everyone made a move at the same time. Rumble! Large hands appeared out of thin air, carrying a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. They shattered the firmament and grabbed at the origin star that was erupting with dazzling light. With their strength, it was no pressure to grab an origin star. The moment everyone made a move, Murong-Yu's angelic clone couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Although an angel was just a mass of energy, it could still spit out blood. This was something that even Murong-Yu couldn't understand. Aside from Murong-Yu, all of the initial Dao experts present violently coughed up blood. Some of the weaker initial Dao cultivators were even forced to prostrate on the ground by the terrifying pressure. Nearly 200 Dao ancestor experts made a move without holding back. The power that erupted could even destroy the wilderness temple's star field in an instant. Therefore, the initial Tao cultivators were the first to bear the brunt of this terrifying pressure and couldn't bear it. After the initial Tao cultivators, the Tao lords couldn't hold on any longer, and all of them quickly retreated. Only the Tao lords were still barely holding on. However, they didn't make a move. With their strength, even if they made a move, they were no match for the Tao ancestors. It was just a waste of strength. The Tao ancestors were all suppressing their strength. Otherwise, if they unleashed all their strength, the wilderness temple star field would be instantly shattered. Even the nearby star fields would be destroyed. In that case, apart from being able to keep their lives, the people they brought with them would be annihilated. However, even so, you still saw large areas of the sky being annihilated. Especially the forces near the origin stars. It was tragic. The large hands of nearly 200 Tao ancestors grabbed over at the same time. Wherever they passed, the origin stars were shattered and the cultivators exploded into clouds of blood mist. At this moment, everyone's focus was on the treasure that was about to be born. However, they didn't notice that the blood mist of the cultivators who were killed and exploded didn't disappear slowly like usual. Instead, it disappeared instantly, as if it had been devoured. Almost at the same time, the large hands of nearly 200 Tao ancestors collided in the sky above the origin star. Boom! After the dazzling light, there was an earth-shattering sound. This was the strongest collision of nearly 200 Tao ancestors. Immediately, the primordial star and the surrounding void were annihilated. Moreover, the void was rapidly being annihilated in all directions. However, those Tao ancestors didn't want the wilderness temple's star field to be annihilated. Therefore, their large hands shook slightly, and the void stopped being annihilated. This ability was too heaven-defying. Swoosh! At the same time that the origin star exploded, a large crystal-clear hand suddenly reached out from the dazzling light, and then grabbed from a distance. Puff! 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 With just one grab, the giant hands of nearly 200 Tao ancestors exploded into pieces. They were completely vulnerable. What was going on? Many Tao ancestors were shocked. The strength of the large hand that appeared out of thin air was far above them. Otherwise, it would definitely not be able to crush their large hands with just a grab. Of course, not all of the large hands of the Tao ancestors were crushed. There were still some extremely powerful large hands of the Tao ancestors that weren't crushed. On the contrary, the large hands of these experts even cracked the sky and grabbed at the large crystal-clear hand. Bang! The large, translucent hand slapped down with all its might. This time, all the large hands of the Tao ancestors were crushed. The large crystal-clear hand didn't even show its true appearance, but it had already disintegrated all the attacks of nearly 200 Tao ancestors. This battle prowess immediately stunned everyone present. Those Tao ancestors looked at the translucent hand with unsightly faces, their eyes full of vigilance. No one else dared to make a move. The dazzling light slowly dissipated. A figure slowly appeared in everyone's line of sight. It was an extremely handsome young man of about 25 or 26 years old. However, the young man's body was still somewhat illusory, crystal clear, and similar to the angel, an energy body. The 26 wings on his back flapped gently, exuding a holy aura. In between breaths, wisps of blood mist were constantly swallowed by him. Every time he swallowed a cloud of blood mist, the young man's physical body became a little more solid. However, he was still just an energy body. After so many years, Gay have finally returned. Gay, the expert who had just appeared out of thin air, roared and laughed. Bastard! Not far from Yu, a 22-winged angel at the Tao, Lord Level couldn't help but gnash his teeth and curse. Because of Gay's loud laughter, he had a hard time resisting it. That pressure was absolutely not inferior to the might that 200 Tao ancestors had erupted with just now. After sleeping for countless reincarnation epochs, Gay, can finally break through. After swallowing you ants and sacrificing all the lives of your universes, I can definitely break through the third firmament of the Tao Ancestor realm and reach a realm that has never been seen before. I can ride above the heavens." Gay laughed loudly, but didn't hide his killing intent at all. Kill everyone present and sacrifice their universes. Everyone couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. They didn't doubt that Gay was just joking. Gay would definitely do what he said, especially those angels who knew Gay's identity. Gay, the #1 genius of the temple, the #1 expert. You have fallen for countless reincarnation epochs. Your era has come to an end. You're just a past tense. At this time, an archangel stepped out of the crowd and looked at Gay coldly. Gay looked at the archangel expressionlessly. 26-winged angel. Angel, although you are the same as me, in front of me, you are just an ant. Ant, you say I'm just a past tense? That's right, you are a past tense. The only reason you have reappeared here is to be swallowed by us, increase our cultivation, and promote a 24-winged angel to a 26-winged angel. Another archangel stepped out of the crowd and said calmly. Gay was still expressionless. Very well. Gay, have only been in seclusion for many years, but you ants think you are already above me? Today, I will show you the power of Gay. At the same time, Gay attacked fiercely, reaching out with his large hand and grabbing at those two archangels. He wanted to kill those two archangels with a single grab. Chapter 2263. The two archangels didn't dare to be careless. They quickly unleashed their strongest power and struck out with the angel divine fist. Although they were both 26-winged angels like Guy, they were still angels. There was a huge difference in their true combat strength. After all, Guy was an ancient angel. Moreover, from what he said, he was already on the verge of breaking through. What was the realm above Tao Ancestor? Controller? If Guy really became one of the controllers, then almost no one would be a match for him. Even if he couldn't break through, he would at least be a supreme existence at the third heaven of Tao Ancestor. He would be much stronger than the Overlord at his peak. Boom! Poof! Poof! In a flash, the attacks from both sides collided violently in the void. The two archangels resisted for less than a 10,000th of an instant before their strength was destroyed. In the end, they were sent flying, spurting blood in the void. They were no match for Guy at all. They couldn't even withstand a single blow. Guy smiled contemptuously and reached out his hand, wanting to take the opportunity to crush the two archangels. Attack! At this moment, a furious roar erupted from the group of angels. At this moment, almost all the angels present made their move. Light of Judgment! The angels roared and struck out with the Light of Judgment. How many Tao realm angels were present? Even the Tao Ancestor level 26-winged angels were more than 100. Tao Lords, and Elementor level angels were even more numerous. Rumble! Countless angels struck out with the Light of Judgment at the same time. Instantly, an intense and dazzling light quickly condensed into a terrifying wave in the void, erupting with a terrifying aura that could destroy the world. What a terrifying aura! Muronyu reacted at this moment and struck out with the Light of Judgment as well. Looking at the terrifying power condensing in the sky, Murongyu's expression changed. At this moment, the power condensed by the Light of Judgment had already surpassed the Overlord at his peak. It was comparable to Guy, who had just appeared. Moreover, the power of the Light of Judgment was still rapidly increasing. Seeing this scene, apart from the angels, everyone else's expression changed. They all knew about the Light of Judgment. However, they didn't know that the Light of Judgment could be used like this. This Light of Judgment was no longer 1 plus 1 equals 2. It was greater than 2. Damn it, Guy cursed. The Light of Judgment could already threaten him. He was someone who was destined to surpass Tao Ancestor. How could he be threatened by these ants in his eyes? Thus, he attacked again. He threw out a punch. Kill! An archangel roared. Thus, the angels joined forces to control the Light of Great Judgment and blasted it towards Guy. Damn it, these angels want to kill us all at the same time. The moment the archangel attacked, the faces of the other great beings from the other universes changed. This was because they clearly saw the light of great judgment sweeping over. Retreat, let them fight to the death. The supreme existences at the Tao ancestor level growled and retreated with the experts of their own universes. Only Guy did not retreat. If he wanted to escape, he could escape. However, as a peerless genius, he would never run away without a fight. Rumble, Guy, and countless angels collided, and an earth-shattering explosion erupted. Terrifying shockwaves continued to erupt and spread in all directions. Wherever they passed, the void was quickly annihilated. Black holes kept appearing. However, under the bombardment of the peak Tao ancestor level power, these black holes were blown up as soon as they appeared, annihilated into endless chaos. Puff, Guy, was the #1 genius and the strongest being in the Archean sacred temple. However, he had been dead for many years. Even though his realm had improved, his combat strength was far from his heyday. Therefore, he still could not resist the joint attack of the many angels. His power was blown up. Then, the terrifying power bombarded Guy's body ferociously. Guy roared again and again. Waves of angelic power erupted from his body, firmly enveloping him, trying to offset the impact of those terrifying powers. However, even his active attack could not withstand a single blow, let alone a passive defense. In almost a 10,000th of a second, Guy's power shield was shattered. However, Guy was still a supreme existence at the 3rd level Tao ancestor level. His power was extremely powerful. After the power shield was shattered, a new power shield was formed again, protecting him inside. However, the attacks of the angels were endless and ferocious. If this continued, Guy would definitely die. Guy let out an angry roar. The angel god fists continued to strike out. However, he was still able to resist the attacks. This made him feel very aggrieved. Guy roared angrily to the sky. After blowing up a wave of power bombarding him with a punch, he took a step forward. He also took a step forward, and in the next moment, his figure had already disappeared from the spot. The arrogant Guy, the #1 expert and the #1 genius of the sacred temple, ran away just like that. Chase him. Seeing Guy running away, the experts of the giant universe, the devil universe, and other universes hurriedly launched their figures and were about to give chase. However, none of the angels of the angel universe chased after him. Originally, Murong Yu wanted to chase after him. However, after seeing that the others did not move, he stayed. These angels were strange everywhere. There must be some conspiracy. Immediately launch the Archean formation. Today, we will catch Guy and the other invaders in one fell swoop. I believe that Guy can make many of us become 3rd level Tao ancestors, an archangel immediately said. Hearing this, Murong was taken aback. It turned out that the angels had already known that the treasure that was about to be born was Guy. Moreover, their real purpose was not to have more Tao ancestors, but to use Guy's power or comprehension to break through to the 3rd level Tao ancestor level. A supreme existence at the 3rd level Tao ancestor level was much stronger and more important than 10 or even 100 1st level Tao ancestors. Did you not see that Guy, who had just been resurrected, was able to resist the joint attack of nearly 200 Tao ancestors? If the angels had not jointly used the light of judgment, Guy would never have been defeated. Before his voice fell, the hundreds of 26-winged angels of the angel universe quickly disappeared in different directions from Murong Yu's sight. Soon after, Murong Yu only felt the sky shake and the earth shake. At the same time, thick white mist constantly appeared out of thin air. In the blink of an eye, it had covered the entire wilderness temple star field. At this time, it was not so dark that he could not see his own fingers. But even if he was 10 feet away from the opposite side, he could not see the existence of others. What was even more insane was that this white mist even blocked out divine sense. In here, even a Tao ancestor level expert became a blind person. These angels had long been prepared. No wonder they were not nervous at all when they saw Guy escape. Moreover, they did not attack the invaders from other universes. Now, those people had become turtles in a jar, fish on the chopping board. Kill. Leave no one alive. An archangel came in front of Murong-Yu, then led a group of angels where Murong-Yu was and quickly left. 100 archangels led a portion of the Grand Tao realm cultivators in different directions. At this time, the entire Wilderness Temple star field was shrouded in white mist, and divine thought could not spread out. Therefore, everyone was like a headless fly and could only wander around here. No one could know where they were now, and no one could determine the direction. Sensing the danger, the invaders from the other universes all identified a direction and shot out of the Wilderness Temple. Although they wanted to kill Guy, they still prioritized preserving their own lives. An indescribable force suddenly descended from the sky and entered Murong-Yu's body. Immediately, Murong-Yu saw light again. The white mist had disappeared from his eyes. Even his enormous divine thought could spread out. This was the power of the array. Murong-Yu was well aware of this. There are outer-verse cultivators in front. Kill them all. The leading archangel roared and took the lead to charge forward. Murong-Yu looked over, and then a smile appeared on his face. This group of invaders was none other than cultivators from the divine universe. They were not only invaders from the archangel universe, but also from the saint universe. Kill. Murong-Yu's archangel avatar roared and took the lead to charge forward. However, although he was fast, the other archangels were faster. Murong-Yu had only just rushed out when many archangels rushed into the divine universe cultivators and began a massacre. It couldn't be helped. Many archangels were stronger than him. Soul Storm. After rushing into the crowd, Murong-Yu immediately used the Soul Storm. Killing invaders in the angel universe would result in a reward from the archangel universe's origin. Therefore, Murong-Yu had to kill as many enemies as possible. Pooh! 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 The divine universe cultivators were like headless flies. They couldn't see the archangels at all. Coupled with the strange variability of soul attacks, many cultivators died. As a result, many cultivators met with tragedy. Large numbers of their souls were erased, and they died an unnatural death. Swish, swish, swish. Every time an invader was killed, a white light would descend from the sky and enter Murong-Yu's body. These were the rewards from the angel universe. However, although there were many rewards, they didn't have much effect on Murong-Yu. However, no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. While killing enemies, Murong-Yu was also constantly comprehending the Tao Lord realm. This was because Murong-Yu's original body hadn't reached the Tao Lord realm. Therefore, if his avatar wanted to break through, he had to comprehend it thoroughly. Otherwise, no matter how much power he had, he wouldn't be able to break through. Chapter 2264. This kid is so ferocious. The other angels in the surroundings couldn't help but be shocked when they saw the white light that entered Murong-Yu's body rise and fall. However, none of them were able to see how Murong-Yu had made his move. However, the white light rewarded by the universe's origin energy couldn't be hidden. Murong-Yu was shocked when he saw the shocked gazes of the people around him. He knew that he was in the limelight. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Murong-Yu reacted. Thus, he stopped using large-scale soul attacks. Otherwise, he would arouse the suspicion of others, and they might even kill him. Of course, that wasn't the main reason. The main reason was that the rewards he obtained from killing ordinary Tao realm cultivators couldn't allow him to improve his cultivation quickly. He needed to kill even stronger cultivators. So, he'd set his sights on a Tao Lord in the universe. These cultivators from the divine universe couldn't see anything more than 3 meters away. Even if Murong-Yu approached, they couldn't see him. However, these people were all experts at the great Tao realm, and they had long since gathered together. Moreover, although they couldn't see with their eyes and divine senses, their senses were still sharp. When he rushed over with a strong, murderous aura, he would be detected by them before he even got close. Oftentimes, when the angels charged over, they would be greeted by a fist imbued with the power to destroy heaven and earth. Therefore, besides the heavy losses on the divine universe's side at the beginning, they quickly adjusted themselves. In this way, A large number of angels started to die on the divine universe's side. The angels weren't idiots, and they quickly came up with a way to deal with it. They tried their best to restrain their killing intent, and then they secretly approached. When they were around 3 meters away from the divine universe's side, they attacked fiercely. Besides Murong Yu's side, numerous battles erupted in the entire Wilderness Temple Star region. Terrifying forces swept over incessantly, tearing the heavens and splitting the earth. Even the space in the Wilderness Temple was blasted apart. However, the recovery ability of the space in the divine universe was extremely strong. Although the space was blasted apart, it would quickly recover on its own. However, the planets and origin stars were in a miserable state. They were blasted apart one by one, and these origin stars and planets wouldn't recover after being blasted apart. After this war, the entire Wilderness Temple star field would most likely be reduced to nothingness. All of this wasn't what Murong Yu was concerned about. Now, he was already close to that Tao Master of the Divine Universe. Light of Judgment. Murong Yu discovered that although the combat skills and cultivation methods cultivated by the angels were very common, they were still very common. However, every time he used it, he would gain something different. Moreover, these common combat skills were not as ordinary as they seemed. Just like the Light of Judgment, when combined, even a third Heaven Tao ancestor could not resist. One could only imagine how terrifying it was. You're courting death. When Murong Yu attacked, the Tao Lord of the Divine Universe that he'd locked onto had noticed him. The Tao Master immediately laughed sinisterly and threw a punch at Murong Yu with a look of disdain on his face. He wanted to kill Murong Yu. Murong Yu was merely a 20-winged angel. How dare he attack him? If this wasn't courting death, then what was? At this moment, Murong Yu had already appeared in the Pathmaster's line of sight. The Pathmaster was stunned because he clearly saw that Murong Yu had a mocking expression on his face, and there was no fear at all. Was he mocking him? The Pathmaster was speechless. Shouldn't he be the one showing this expression to him? Now, the roles seemed to be reversed. Myriad waves of soul. At this moment, Murong Yu directly unleashed a soul attack. A member of the soul race? How could there be a member of the soul race in the angel universe? The Pathmaster of the Divine Universe was immediately shocked, and a doubt flashed through his mind. However, he would never be able to figure out this question, because his soul had already been obliterated. He was only a low-level Pathmaster, so how could he resist Murong Yu's soul attack? Swish, a strong white light descended from the sky and entered Murong Yu's body. A look of surprise suddenly appeared on Murong Yu's face. When the reward fell from the sky, he thought that it would only increase his strength. However, he didn't expect that the reward this time would be different from the previous ones. It still increased his strength. However, there was something else that was rewarded to Murong Yu. Experience. Yes, experience. The experience needed to break through from the initial Tao realm to the Tao Lord realm. Although this experience was very little and could almost be ignored. However, it was extremely useful to Murong Yu. Although Murong Yu had a peak Pathmaster, Patriarch Han Yi, as one of his clones, he also had all of Patriarch Han Yi's cultivation experience. However, the angel race was different from the cultivators of other universes. Therefore, the things that they needed to comprehend were different. Now, Murong Yu had obtained the experience of an angel race's breakthrough. Combined with Patriarch Han Yi's cultivation experience, Murong Yu felt that it wouldn't be long before his clone could break through to the Tao Lord realm. Unfortunately, the vision of the angel race wasn't obstructed here. Otherwise, Murong Yu could have killed the angel race and the invaders. Not only could it improve the cultivation of his clone, but it could also improve the cultivation of his main body. However, the stronger the doppelganger, the stronger Murong Yu's strength would be. It was a good thing to be able to improve his clone. He looked around, although the light of his reward this time was a little stronger. However, no one seemed to have noticed. Thus, Murong Yu took a step forward and vanished on the spot. Not long after, he set his sights on a Tao Lord Realm cultivator from the Divine Universe. He discovered that only by killing a Tao Lord Realm cultivator would the universe quintessence reward him with experience. Perhaps killing a Tao ancestor would give him even more experience? However, Moronyu didn't even dare think about it. A Tao ancestor was too powerful. At this moment, the angel race had already faced the Tao ancestor expert from the divine universe. Clearly, within the formation, the angels had the advantage of time and place. The Tao ancestor expert from the divine universe wasn't a match for the angel race at all. He was suppressed from the beginning. Moreover, Moronyu saw that the angel race seemed to be able to borrow the power of the formation to kill the Tao ancestor from the divine universe. Die. Just as Moronyu approached his target, a loud sound that was like a thunderclap suddenly came from the front. Wherever the voice passed, even the white fog became a little thinner. At the same time, a fist that was even larger than a mountain shattered the void. It locked onto the angel race, who was fighting the Tao ancestor expert from the divine universe, and suddenly blasted over. When he saw the huge fist that was like a mountain, Moronyu's pupils couldn't help but constrict. That huge fist wasn't a fist condensed from ordinary power. It was a real fist of flesh and blood. There was only one possibility for such a huge fist. The people from the giant universe had come. Moreover, it should be a supergiant that was over 1,000,000 meters tall. A Tao ancestor realm giant. The angel race was worthy of being an angel race. After being shocked, he quickly reacted and immediately abandoned the Tao ancestor from the divine universe and was about to retreat. Where do you think you're going? How could the Tao ancestor expert from the divine universe not know that now was the best opportunity to kill the other party? He immediately unleashed his most powerful attack, entangling the archangel tightly. The angel race is finished. If he's finished, all of us angels will be finished. Moronyu was very clear in his heart. He immediately made the most correct choice, immediately abandoned that Tao ancestor and unleashed his fastest speed, quickly fleeing into the distance. At the same time that Moronyu fled, the huge fist had already fiercely blasted onto the angel race. The angel race first let out a terrifying scream. Then his entire physical body was blown up. Even the angel race's tear was smashed into powder. Moronyu watched with great pain. This is a Tao ancestor. If I devour it, will it let me directly rush from the second level of the selfless realm to the initial level of the Tao ancestor realm? Although Moronyu felt the pain, his speed became even faster. Even a Tao ancestor was killed by one punch, let alone him. You all have to die. The giant let out a shocking roar, and the huge fist struck fiercely into the air. Swish, the terrifying power swept out in all directions like a gale. Suddenly, those angels who did not have time to retreat were unable to resist at all. They were directly blasted into powder by that terrifying power, not even leaving behind dregs. Except for Moronyu, this team of angels had been completely wiped out. Puff! Although Moronyu had already left this place one step ahead, he was still blasted by the aftermath of the giant's power. It almost blasted him to smithereens. Fortunately, the distance was already far enough. Coupled with Morongyu's original body taking action, he succeeded in saving the angel race clone. Otherwise, his angel race clone would also be blown up. The power of a Tao ancestor powerhouse is too terrifying. Before reaching the Tao ancestor realm, I absolutely can't get close to a Tao ancestor, let alone be their enemy. Moronyu was silent in his heart. Even so, he did not leave the Wilderness Temple Starfield. The angel universe was powerful. He firmly believed that those invaders from other universes who entered here and even Guy would eventually be destroyed by the angels. He wanted to stay here and reap the benefits of the fishermen. In the following time, Moronyu took advantage of his visible advantage to constantly kill the invaders from the angel universe, as well as the angels. At the same time, he improved the cultivation of the angel race clone and the original body. The development of things was also within Morongyu's expectations. Although the giant universe and the demon universe were powerful, after becoming turtles in a jar, they could only struggle temporarily. As time passed, a large number of invaders and angels fell. The invaders were getting fewer and fewer, but the angels were getting more and more. This was because an endless stream of angels were pouring into the wilderness temple's starfield from all directions. Even dozens of Tao ancestor powerhouses had fallen. It was just a pity that although Murong Yu saw several Tao ancestor-level supreme existences fall with his own eyes, he did not dare to approach at all. That was the battlefield of Tao ancestors. If he dared to approach, he might be crushed into powder by the aftermath of the power before he could get close. The defeat of the invaders and Guy was only a matter of time. Chapter 2265. The battle continued. At the beginning, Murong Yu was still able to reap the lives of the angels and invaders amidst the chaos. But soon, he was unable to move freely. It was because as the great battle continued, ordinary great Tao realm experts fell rapidly. The battlefield gradually evolved into a battle between Tao ancestors. At this moment, most of the ordinary Tao realm experts had died. Apart from the angels, there were no initial Tao realm or Tao Lord realm experts among the invaders. There weren't many Tao Lord level existences left, either. At this moment, all of them were being besieged by the angels. Actually, the casualties on the angels' side were not bad either. The ratio of the angels to the invaders was almost 1-to-1. However, this was the angel universe. If an angel died, 2 more would come in. Therefore, in the end, not only did the number of angels not decrease, but it also increased by several times, or even more than before. Even if they were supreme existences at the level of Tao Ancestor, there were already close to 200 of them. There were Tao Ancestors on both sides who died. However, the angel universe was indeed a powerful universe. There were definitely more than 100 archangels. More and more archangels arrived. On the other hand, the Tao ancestors on the invaders' side gradually died and decreased. In the end, the several tens of great Tao realm experts from the invaders were forced into a corner by the great angels. They were bombarded by close to 200 great angels, and the great Tao realm experts launched the craziest attacks. However, what surprised Murong Yu was that the common target of the angel universe and the other universes, Guy, had disappeared. After Guy was blasted back by the light of judgment by the angels, he had not appeared since. Could it be that he had already left the Wilderness Temple Star Field? The invaders had no time to care about him because they were being wiped out by the angels. The angels should have the strength to take care of Guy, but they did not seem to care about him. Murong Yu was puzzled by this. However, he felt that things were not so simple. Therefore, he mixed in with the angels and killed those powerful Tao lords from afar. The Tao lords who were able to fight until the very end were all peak Tao lords. They were no longer people that Murong Yu could kill alone. Therefore, he could only be with the angels. However, during this period of time, he had also killed a large number of Tao Lord-level angels. His strength was already sufficient. As long as he was willing, he could break through to the 3rd level of selfless realm at any time. His angelic avatar had already accumulated enough. After killing a large number of Tao Lord-level invaders, the angel universe's quintessence rewarded him with enough experience. He only needed a certain amount of time to fully comprehend those experiences, and then he would be able to break through. The battle would not end in a short time. Moreover, Murong Yu indeed needed a higher realm and more powerful strength. Therefore, while the surrounding angels were not paying attention, Murong Yu's angel clone rushed into Hichu Luoshu. Time acceleration. Murong Yu didn't say anything and directly activated Hichu Luoshu's time acceleration ability. Then, his angelic avatar sat down cross-legged and began to comprehend the reward given to him by the origin of the angel universe. As for Murong Yu's true body and his soul avatar, they didn't stay idle either. They also began to comprehend. Although the angelic clone had only obtained the cultivation experience of the angel clan, it was still not enough. However, it could also be used as a reference. After all, although every universe was different, it was still the same. However, no matter how many changes there were, they would still remain the same. At the end of the day, their essence was the same, and they would all have certain commonalities. Especially Murong Yu's true body. Because his realm was too low, the benefits he obtained after comprehending these things were extremely great. It was precisely because his comprehension had always been before his realm. Therefore, once he had accumulated enough, he naturally broke through. There were very few bottlenecks. As for the soul avatar, he also obtained many benefits when comprehending these experiences. Several years later, Crack, Murong Yu's angelic avatar, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground cultivating, suddenly had a pair of wings appear out of thin air on his back. 22-winged angel. That was equivalent to the Tao, Lord Realm of the Saint Universe. After breaking through, his soul avatar was dozens of times stronger than before. After all, this was just an ordinary angel's body and didn't have much potential. After breaking through, the increase in strength was within the normal range. It was impossible to be like Murong Yu's true body, whose combat strength would increase by leaps and bounds every time he broke through a minor realm. My angelic clone has broken through, so how can my true body fall behind? Breakthrough. Level 3 of the Selfless Realm. Murong Yu roared in his heart and began to break through to his true body's realm with all his might. His strength was already enough. While his angelic clone was in seclusion, he was only comprehending and didn't break through. Therefore, his breakthrough was a matter of course. His angelic clone had already broken through to the Tao Lord Realm first. Coupled with Murong Yu's soul attack, killing low-level Tao Lords was no problem at all. His true body had broken through to level 3 of the Selfless Realm, and Murong Yu's combat strength had already reached the level of a level 3 Tao Lord. It was extremely ferocious. If he fused even more power and soul vortex, his combat strength would be even more terrifying. Killing mid-level Tao Lords would be as easy as flipping his hand. Although the soul avatar hadn't broken through to the Tao Ancestor realm, and his combat strength hadn't even increased by a trace. However, he had comprehended many things from the experience he'd gained from the angelic clone. He was one step closer to the Tao Ancestor realm. Bang! Just as Murong Yu was about to stay in the He 2 and the Book of the Luo to fuse even more power with his soul vortex, a frightening power suddenly bombarded the He 2 and the Book of the Luo. Pooh! Caught off guard, the overflowing damage caused Murong Yu to spit out a mouthful of blood. And this was because his cultivation had increased by another level. Otherwise, he wouldn't have just spat out blood. It was extremely likely that he would have been torn apart, and even his soul would have been shattered. What's going on? Didn't I secretly attach Hichu Luoshu to a 24-winged angel? There shouldn't be any problems with so many angels gathered together. Moreover, although a few epochs have passed under the time acceleration, it hasn't even been an hour. However, it hasn't even been an hour outside, right? While Murong Yu was pondering, he had already sent his divine sense out. The next moment, his expression changed. Originally, the 24-winged angel he was attached to was besieging those invaders with a large group of angels. But now, those hundreds of millions of angels had disappeared. Hichu Luoshu was floating between heaven and earth at this time, drifting with the waves. Waves of terrifying force constantly came from all directions, bombarding Hichu Luoshu. Pooh! 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 Although Murong Yu's strength had broken through, it was difficult for him to resist the impact of these shock waves. He could only spit out blood from the shock waves, which was very miserable, because at this time, there were hundreds of Tao Ancestor Realm experts fighting outside. There were 26 winged angels, as well as Tao Ancestor Realm experts from other universes. There were giants over 1,000,000 meters tall from the universe, and extremely hideous yakshas. There were handsome and coquettish demons. Murong Yu secretly complained his heart. Was it those idiotic angels who rushed to the battlefield of these Tao ancestors, or the Tao ancestors who came to kill them? Murong Yu's alliance controlled Hichu Luo Shu and was about to shoot out into the distance. However, the terrifying power of the Dao Ancestor Realm was constantly surging, and Hichu Luo Shu could not move according to Murong Yu's will. Moreover, Hichu Luo Shu was constantly approaching the center of the battlefield. Now, it was only the periphery, but Murong Yu was almost killed, let alone entering the center of the battlefield. At that time, Murong Yu would definitely die. Direct transmission? If it could be done directly, Murong Yu would have been transmitted away from this damn place without hesitation. The battle between Dao ancestors was so terrifying that it directly cut off the connection between Hichu Luo Shu and other transmission points. Murong Yu appeared directly in front of Zhao Su and others, and said with a gloomy and pale face, "I need your help. Give me all your power." "Murong Yu, where did you take us? Why is there no news for so long?" Zhao Su looked at Murong Yu with a gloomy face and asked loudly. Murong Yu glanced at Zhao Su and did not speak. He just waved his hand. Suddenly, the battlefield of the Dao ancestors outside was clearly presented in front of everyone. Is this a battle between Dao ancestors? Feeling the terrifying power that suffocated people, everyone's face instantly turned pale. Zhao Su, in particular, looked even more frightened. "Murong Yu, you are too insidious. Do you want to take us down with you?" Zhao Su looked at Murong Yu with a ferocious face. He directly thought that Murong Yu did this on purpose. Slap. His voice had yet to fade when Progenitor Han, he already gave him a slap. "Why is it so troublesome to kill you? Those Dao ancestors are all fighting for that treasure. We're just waiting for an opportunity to make a move. If you don't want to die, immediately do as Murong Yu says. Otherwise, I don't mind finishing him off." Zhao Su was immediately stunned. However, traces of resentment still flickered in the depths of his eyes. If there was a chance, he would definitely kill Murong Yu. Murong Yu took a deep look at Zhao Su. Every time he saw Zhao Su, he wanted to kill this Zhao Su. Otherwise, this guy would definitely plot against people behind their backs. However, one more person was one more portion of strength now. Better keep him for the time being. Receiving everyone's strength, Murong Yu's endurance limit greatly increased. However, he was still not a match for these Dao ancestors. He still needed to leave here now. Otherwise, the result would still be the same. Bang! A trail of blood suddenly soared into the sky. Before Murong Yu reacted, a corpse fell into the void not far from Hichu Luo Shu. This was the corpse of an archangel. The power contained in the corpse of a Dao ancestor-level angel was very terrifying. If I could devour it, Murong Yu's heart stirred. Chapter 2266. Angels were bodies of energy, and Dao Father-level angels contained enormous amounts of power. They could even raise an early Dao Father cultivator to the Dao Lord level, or even the Dao Lord level. In addition, the angels' tears left behind by Dao Father experts were extremely precious. In addition to containing pure power, they also contain the Dao Father's lifetime of cultivation experience and comprehension. I have to get that archangel's corpse. Murong Yu roared in his heart. He'd already locked onto the corpse. Of course, this was just Murong Yu's thoughts. The archangel's corpse wasn't too far away from him, only about 100 million kilometers away. However, this distance, which he'd normally be able to cross without even taking half a step, was now like a natural chasm. The archangel's corpse was already near the center of the battlefield. Now, with every step Murong Yu took, the pressure he had to endure increased exponentially. The pressure was only one aspect, even if he was able to resist this terrifying pressure. But how was Murong Yu going to move Hichu Luo Shu? 4 symbols formation. At this moment, Hichu's voice, which had been silent for a long time, rang out in Murong Yu's ears. Hearing this, Murong Yu's eyes instantly lit up. The 4 symbols formation was a miraculous formation that had the ability to project. In addition, the caster could teleport within the formation at will. If he could project the formation onto the archangel's corpse, Murong Yu would be able to take the corpse away in an instant. This was the only method he could use. Murong Yu immediately activated the four symbols formation. This formation didn't need to be set up, as it had already been set up. Murong Yu only needed to place enough crystals in it to activate it. Buzz. The formation's projection was directly projected. However, a terrifying wave of power surged out, and the formation's projection was instantly annihilated. The distance between them was only a few 100,000 kilometers. Moreover, it could only last for 2 instants. After 2 instants, everything was shattered. Murong Yu was 100 million kilometers away from the Archangel's corpse. Was he going to give up just like that? This was a great opportunity for him. If he gave it up, he might regret it for a long time. Therefore, Murong Yu would never give up. Angel Avatar, Soul Race Avatar, fused together. Murong Yu clenched his teeth and pondered for a moment. Then, he suddenly roared. Whoosh! Whoosh! The angel and soul doppelganger transformed into 2 streaks of light that shot into Murong Yu's body. Rumble! Just as the 2 clones merged with Murong Yu's main body, Murong Yu's strength skyrocketed. Mid-level Dao Lords, high-level Dao Lords, and even peak Dao Lords. They had surpassed old Ancestor Hun Yi's peak and were rushing toward the Dao Ancestor realm. Dao Ancestor, you must reach the Dao Ancestor realm. Murong Yu roared in his heart. However, even though Murong Yu had the celestial chaos body, he was still unable to defy the heavens. In the end, his strength had stopped at the peak of the Dao Lord realm. He was only half a step away from charging into the Dao Ancestor realm. However, even then, his current combat strength had far surpassed old Ancestor Hun Yi's peak. I'm unable to reach the Dao Ancestor realm. However, with my current strength, I might be able to barely resist the shock waves that emanated from the battle. I don't need to kill Dao Ancestor experts. I need to temporarily resist the shock waves from the battle between Dao Ancestors. Even though Murong Yu was slightly disappointed, he wasn't dejected. This was the limit of what he could do right now. Hichu charged. Murong Yu poured all his strength into Hichu Luoshu. In an instant, Hichu Luoshu's ability to endure damage had increased greatly. The damage that Murong Yu had suffered from the battle had practically vanished as well. Swoosh! Under his control, Hichu Luoshu transformed into a streak of light that flashed towards the Archangel's corpse. He had to make the best use of every second, because even after fusing with his clone, he could only possess his current strength for an hour. After an hour, he would return to his normal state. Moreover, after fusing like this, he would be overdrawing his clone's potential. After the fusion, the 2 clones would suffer some damage, both major and minor. It was precisely because of this that Murong Yu hadn't fused like this before. In addition, the Archangel's corpse was also constantly being attacked by the shockwaves from the attacks of the other Dao Ancestors. Even though it could resist for the time being, it definitely wouldn't last for too long. After all, it was only a corpse and not a living Dao Ancestor. Even a living Dao Ancestor would need to consume energy to resist the attacks of the other Dao Ancestors. Once a corpse couldn't resist, it would vanish into thin air. The longer the battle dragged on, the more energy the corpse contained would consume. In that way, the value of the Archangel's corpse would decrease. 5 million kilometers, 9 million kilometers, 12 million kilometers. In the beginning, he too and Luoshu could cover a distance of 5 million miles in an instant. But as he went deeper and deeper, the distance he could cross in an instant became shorter and shorter. This was because Hichu Luoshu was under increasing pressure. 5 million kilometers for million kilometers, 3 million kilometers. When he was close to 80 million kilometers, Hichu Luoshu could only advance a few 100,000 kilometers in an instant. Moreover, the pressure was extremely strong, almost to the limit. The billions of roots of the tree of life that were rooted in the endless void crazily devoured the free chaotic energy and finally turned it into life energy. It washed over Murong Yu's body like a storm. With the current life energy, even the physical body of a Dao Master could be easily repaired. But the current situation wasn't optimistic. Often, before the life energy could be completely repaired, Murongyu's physical body would be shattered by the overflowing damage. This was because Murongyu was constantly extracting the power of Zhao Su and the other Dao realm experts for his own use. Otherwise, he would have been destroyed long ago. Murongyu gritted his teeth and endured the tremendous pressure, still advancing. Even though his speed had slowed down, he still didn't stop. Finally, he was only 10 million kilometers away from the Archangel's corpse. Only 10 million kilometers away. This distance was usually nothing to Murongyu. But now, it was like a huge chasm that couldn't be crossed. Hichu Luoshu was unable to continue advancing. The tremendous pressure was pressing down on Hichu Luoshu from all directions. No matter how hard Murongyu tried, Hichu Luoshu was still unable to advance. I can't accept this. Murongyu roared helplessly in his heart. Murongyu couldn't accept that he could only stop here after damaging 2 of his clones. But what could he do? This was the only thing he could do now. This was his current limit. I can't accept this. No matter what, I won't give up. Murongyu continued to roar in his heart. His eyes were already red. Holy Lord, why do you have to do this? Even without this Archangel's corpse, you will still increase your strength eventually. Advancing the Dao Ancestor is just a delay. Why do you have to be so stubborn? Hichu couldn't watch anymore and began to persuade Murongyu. I've made up my mind, Murongyu said with a determined expression. His determination was no longer as simple as just obtaining the Archangel's corpse. This was also a test and bottleneck for him. If he could pass this test and bottleneck, his cultivation would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. And if he shrank back just like that, it would be very detrimental to his future cultivation. It might even lead to the birth of inner demons, and his cultivation would forever stagnate. Overlord, lend me the power of a Dao ancestor. At the crucial moment, Murongyu still thought of the Overlord, the only Dao ancestor expert he knew. So, he began to communicate with the Overlord across several universes. Murongyu is communicating with me? The Overlord, who was in seclusion in the distant holy world, was suddenly roused from his cultivation. Overlord, lend me the power of a Dao ancestor. Murongyu's voice rang out in the depths of the Overlord's mind once more. What the hell? The Overlord frowned and immediately communicated with Murongyu. You can really communicate? Murongyu couldn't help but be overjoyed in the angel universe. Therefore, he quickly explained the current situation to him. You bastard, do you have a death wish? The Overlord was immediately stunned. Murongyu was far too audacious. Overlord, this is a huge opportunity for me. I don't want to miss it. I hope you'll help me, Murongyu said in a low voice. The Overlord fell silent and didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, the Overlord's voice rang out in Murongyu's mind. I can lend you my power temporarily. All Dao ancestors have this ability. However, the distance between us is too great. Even if I can teleport over, the distance between us is too great. Even if I can teleport, I'm afraid you won't be able to reach the Dao ancestor level. I'll try my best. Murongyu didn't hesitate. Wong. The Overlord didn't say anything else. After a while, a pure and powerful energy poured into Murongyu's body out of thin air. However, even though this energy was pure and powerful, it was far from reaching the Dao ancestor level. It only allowed Murongyu to take another small step forward. Overlord, it's not enough. I need more power. Murongyu roared. In the next moment, an even stronger energy poured into his body. But it was still not enough. Not enough. Not enough. Still not enough. Kid, I haven't fully recovered my cultivation. Teleporting energy like this consumes too much energy. I'll risk being heavily injured to help you. Remember, you only have 10 breaths of time. After 10 breaths of time, I won't be able to continue. After this, I'll be heavily injured. The time it takes to recover my strength will be extended indefinitely. The Overlord's deep voice sounded in Murongyu's ears, causing his heart to sink. Even though he was the one who resurrected the Overlord, Murongyu was still grateful that the Overlord was willing to go to this extent. Wang, an even more powerful energy was transmitted through the air, instantly causing Murongyu to feel bloated. After an instant, with a loud bang, Murong Yu finally succeeded in temporarily stepping into the Tao ancestor level. I only have 10 breaths of time. During this time, I have to take away the Archangel's corpse and escape from here. Murong Yu didn't have time to sense this temporary increase in power. He controlled the Hichu Luo Shu and moved forward quickly. Chapter 2267. The power of the Tao ancestor level made Murong Yu have an unprecedented feeling of power. Even now, there were still hundreds of Tao ancestor powerhouses fighting, and the surging impact was earth-shattering. The aftermath of these forces originally suppressed Murong Yu and could not get close at all. But now, although the aftermath of these forces was still terrifying, the effect on Murong Yu was minimal. In fact, Murong Yu could directly come out of the Hichu Luo Shu and resist these shock waves without being harmed. It would only consume a part of his power. However, Murong Yu did not come out of the Hichu Luo Shu. If he appeared out of thin air, he would probably be involved in the great battle of the Tao ancestors. And he could only hold on for 10 breaths of time. After 10 breaths of time, he would reveal his true form and recover to his original realm. In this way, Murong Yu would definitely die. Moreover, Murong Yu did not dare to guarantee that if he was attacked by other Tao ancestors, he could hold on for 10 breaths of time. Now, in the Hichu Luo Shu, Murong Yu controlled the Hichu Luo Shu with the power of a Tao ancestor. The power that the Hichu Luo Shu erupted with was already earth-shattering. It was definitely not comparable to him before. In fact, there was no overflow damage at this time. Only 10 breaths of time. In the first breath of time, Murong Yu had already rushed to the vicinity of the Archangel's corpse. The Hichu Luo Shu fiercely rolled, and the Archangel's corpse was already drawn into the Hichu Luo Shu. Everything went smoothly without encountering any resistance. Now, there were still 9 breaths of time, which was enough for Murong Yu to rush out of the battlefield of the Tao ancestors. Just when Murong Yu was about to leave quickly, his heart stirred. Billions of miles away from him, another Tao ancestor with earth-shattering strength fell. This fallen Tao ancestor was not an angel, but a powerhouse of the Fiend clan. It was another well-preserved corpse of a Tao ancestor powerhouse. Murong Yu's heart stirred. There were still 8 breaths of time left. Should I snatch that corpse? Murong Yu did not hesitate at all and directly controlled the Hichu Luo Shu to rush over. However, he did not intend to fight head-on. He only gave himself 6 breaths of time. If he could not take the corpse away in 6 breaths of time, he would leave without hesitation. Otherwise, he would not have enough time to leave the battlefield of the Tao ancestors. A Tao ancestor-level powerhouse crossed several star domains in one step. A distance of billions of miles was not a problem at all. In less than 1,000th of an instant, Murong Yu had already arrived beside the corpse. He too and Luo Shu suddenly opened their mouths and were about to sweep the corpse away. But at this moment, with a whoosh, a figure appeared out of thin air in front of Murong Yu. At the same time, a large hand grabbed the corpse of the Tao ancestor. "Get away from me!" A cold and emotionless shout came fiercely, shaking the surrounding heaven and earth to shatter. At the same time, a huge fist locked onto the Hichu Luo Shu and blasted fiercely. Murong Yu made such a big move, which had long been discovered by the surrounding Tao ancestor powerhouses. The Tao ancestor powerhouse who punched Murong Yu was from the mecha universe. In fact, it was a very powerful mecha. As for the cultivators of the mecha universe inside the mecha, what did they look like? Murong Yu had never seen their real faces. The other party's goal was also the corpse. The reason why the Archangel's corpse was not snatched from Murong Yu before. It should be because of the special nature of the Archangel, that it had no effect on the people of the mecha universe. It was true that the mecha universe was powerful, but what was powerful was their scientific and technological power. For example, the mecha was one of the manifestations of scientific and technological power. The strength of the people of the mecha universe itself was not strong, far inferior to the holy universe. And the fallen Tao ancestor of the demon clan would be of great use to them, right? That was why the other party was fighting with Murong Yu, looking at the huge mecha fist blasting towards him. Murong Yu's eyes couldn't help but burn with a shocking fighting spirit. If the Overlord hadn't transmitted his power across space, Murong Yu would have been scared out of his wits in the face of this fist. But now, he temporarily had the strength to fight against the Tao ancestor. 9 words incantation, 9 words as one. Primordial Great Emperor, suppress all worlds. Murong Yu roared in his heart. He used his strongest skill and blasted towards the Tao ancestor powerhouse from the mecha universe. Boom! A majestic and domineering primordial Great Emperor smashed the constraints of time and space with a punch and came from the primordial Great Emperor. It was earth-shattering and domineering. Boom! The primordial Great Emperor, summoned by the 9 words incantation with the strength of a Tao ancestor, was more than 1,000,000 meters tall, even taller and more terrifying than the Tao ancestor of the giant clan. The face of the primordial Great Emperor was still blurry, and it was not even clear whether it was a man or a woman. After breaking through space from the primordial Great Emperor, he blasted a punch towards the Tao ancestor powerhouse from the mecha universe. Seeing this scene, the Tao ancestor powerhouse from the mecha universe was shocked. In a hurry, he gave up on continuing to attack Murong Yu and blasted a punch towards the primordial Great Emperor. With a loud bang, the Tao ancestor powerhouse from the mecha universe was directly sent flying. Murong Yu even saw that the mecha arm of the Tao ancestor powerhouse from the mecha universe was flashing with traces of electric light. It seemed to be smashed. Great Emperor Fist, suppress all worlds. A low voice came from the primordial Great Emperor's mouth, shaking the surrounding space and annihilating large areas. At the same time, the primordial Great Emperor took a step forward and blasted a punch towards the Tao ancestor powerhouse from the mecha universe. Murong Yu was taken aback. Looking at the primordial Great Emperor, his face was full of horror. This was the first time the primordial Great Emperor had spoken, and it was also the first time he had taken the initiative to attack. Before this, even if he used the 9 words incantation, the primordial Great Emperor was summoned from the primordial Great Emperor. That was just a punch, and then it vanished into thin air. But now he took the initiative to attack for the second time. Moreover, the body of the primordial Great Emperor was now more solid. In the past, it was just a shadow like a shadow. But now it seemed to have become flesh and blood. This series of changes should be related to Murong Yu's powerful strength. Otherwise, he would never be able to summon such a powerful primordial Great Emperor. However, although Murong Yu was shocked, he did not forget his purpose. As the mecha universe's Tao ancestor powerhouse retreated, he took the opportunity to take a step forward. Then, the He-2 in the Book of the Luo rolled up again and sucked the Tao ancestor powerhouse into the He-2 and the Book of the Luo. It was a success. Now Murong Yu still had 3 breaths of time to use. I wonder if I can kill this Tao ancestor powerhouse from the mecha universe? Murong Yu thought. At this time, the primordial Great Emperor's attack had once again blasted the Tao ancestor powerhouse from the mecha universe. Boom! After a loud noise, the Tao ancestor powerhouse from the mecha universe's mecha burst out a dazzling light. The light flickered, and at the same time, he was blasted away by the primordial Great Emperor again. It seemed that the mecha had suffered a lot of damage. 9 words incantation, 9 words combined. Primordial Great Emperor, suppress all heavens. After the Great Emperor summoned by Murong Yu blasted out 2 consecutive attacks, he disappeared. Seeing this, Murong Yu once again struck out several 9 words incantation. But only one primordial Great Emperor appeared. He did not summon more primordial Great Emperors at the same time. Moreover, Murong Yu was shocked to find that every time he summoned a primordial Great Emperor, the Tao ancestor power he could use sharply reduced. Each time, it took him a breath of time. Now, there were only 2 breaths of time left. Adding the reserve time, he still had 4 breaths of time to stay here. Die for me. Seeing the primordial Great Emperor targeting him again, The Tao ancestor powerhouse from the Mecha universe roared and rushed forward without fear. After a breath of time, the Tao ancestor powerhouse from the Mecha universe was repelled. The primordial Great Emperor only had one attack left. After another attack, the primordial Great Emperor would vanish into thin air. Alas, Murong sighed, and no longer obsessed with killing the Tao ancestor powerhouse from the Mecha universe. Instead, he controlled Hichu Luoshu and quickly retreated, leaving this place. If there was only the Tao ancestor powerhouse from a Mecha universe here, Murong was sure that he could blast the Tao ancestor powerhouse away in the last 4 breaths of time. But there was not only one Tao ancestor powerhouse here. Even if Murong finally blasted the other Tao ancestor powerhouse away, he would be blasted away by the other Tao ancestor powerhouses. Fighting with his life? Murong was not such an idiot. Anyway, he had now obtained the bodies of 2 Tao ancestor powerhouses, which was enough. Whoosh! Whoosh! In a breath's time, Murong had already retreated far away from them. Although the Mecha universe's expert wanted to stop Murong wasn't able to escape. But he was entangled by the primordial Great Emperor. The primordial Great Emperor would severely injure him with one blow, so he could not leave the primordial Great Emperor alone. Therefore, when the primordial Great Emperor disappeared, Murong had also disappeared without a trace. And all this happened in just a few breaths of time. Although the other Tao ancestor powerhouses saw this scene, no one could free up their hands. Moreover, neither the invaders nor the angels knew the origin of Murong. If they rashly took action to suppress him, they may add a peerless powerhouse to their side. This was not what they wanted to see. A few breaths of time passed quickly. When the time was up, the Tao ancestor level power transmitted by the Overlord also dissipated from Murong's body. In an instant, Murong returned to the time before liberation. At the same time, he also removed the state of fusion with the 2 doppelgangers. The 2 doppelgangers, big or small, had different degrees of damage, which was within Murong's expectations. However, with the power of life, the damage to the physical body was not a problem. The key was the damage in other aspects, such as the damage in the potential, could only be recovered by slowly cultivating in the future. However, getting the bodies of 2 Tao ancestor powerhouses was all worth it. Chapter 2268. After helping the angel and the soul clone heal their physical wounds, Murong let the angel clone leave Hichu Luoshu. Although it was dangerous outside, there were also great opportunities. Guy hadn't appeared yet. The angel clone was outside, so he might be able to continue to benefit. The soul clone also went to cultivate and heal. Although he had obtained 2 archangel corpses, which contained extremely terrifying power, the soul clone wasn't the real deal. After all, the clone wasn't the real body and didn't have the heaven-defying ability of the real body. These 2 Tao ancestor-level corpses only had an effect on Murong's real body. This was especially true for the archangel's corpse, which contained pure energy that could be easily refined by Murong. As for the demon clan's Tao ancestor-level expert, as expected of a demon clan's Tao ancestor-level expert, his body was surrounded by demonic chi. Even though he was dead, his demonic chi still covered a large area of Hichu Luoshu. Murong could feel that this demonic chi was as pure as the angel's power. It was pure power, but it contained extremely terrifying destructive power. Murong, I'm going to kill you. Just as Murong was studying the demonic chi, on the other side of Hichu Luoshu, Zhao Su suddenly roared. Then, he soared into the sky and flew into the distance. Murong frowned slightly. Was this Zhao Su an idiot? Didn't he know that this was his space treasure? Where could he fly to? With a thought, Murong appeared in front of everyone. At the same time, he sent Zhao Su flying back with a slap. In Hichu Luoshu, he was the ruler. Even though Zhao Su's realm was much higher than his, he was still no match for him. Murong, I know you killed Zhao Gao. I'm going to kill you. Zhao Su looked at Murong with red eyes and roared with killing intent. At the same time, he pounced at Murong-yu. Suppress him. Murong-yu's face was gloomy. With the power of the soul clone, he directly suppressed Zhao Su. Even so, Zhao Su was still roaring angrily, as if he couldn't wait to kill Murong-yu. What's going on? With Zhao Su's temperament, even if he wants to kill me, he won't show it here, right? Murong-yu was puzzled as he looked to the side. What he saw gave him fright. Other than Zhao Su, the other great Dao realm experts were not as agitated, but their eyes were red, and some of them even seemed to be ferocious. To Murong-yu's they were all waiting. These people seemed to have been bewitched, lost their rationality. All of a sudden, Murong-yu came to a realization. Could it be because of the demonic aura? This was because these people had these changes after he collected the demon corpses. Although demonic chi was an incomparably pure power, it was different from ordinary power. Ordinary heaven and earth essence chi didn't contain any special attributes, but demonic chi was different. Demonic chi had all kinds of negative characteristics, such as tyranny, brutality, negativity, and so on. To the cultivators of the demon race, the more intense these characteristics were, the better. Just like the cultivators of the sacred universe, the denser the heaven and earth essence chi in the sacred universe, the greater the benefits for them. However, if one wasn't of the demon race, once they came into contact with demonic chi, they would slowly be invaded by demonic chi and even be assimilated. In the end, they would be reduced to a demon race that only knew how to kill. These cultivators who were invaded by demonic chi and became demons were different from the real demon race. The real demon race was the same as cultivators. They were very clear-headed. The difference between them and the cultivators of the sacred universe was that the power of the cultivators of the sacred universe was the normal power of heaven and earth. The demon race, on the other hand, devoured demonic chi to cultivate. Since he had already guessed the reason, Murong-yu wanted to confirm his guess. Therefore, Murong-yu removed the demonic chi that lingered between heaven and earth. Sure enough, after the demonic chi disappeared, everyone gradually came to their senses. In the end, Zhao Su was also completely awake. However, he clearly remembered what had happened before. Therefore, he was afraid that Murong-yu would kill him, so he simply pretended to be dead. Murong-yu shook his head. His cultivation level was lower than everyone's, so he had been in contact with the demonic chi for much longer than them. Most importantly, he was originally by the side of the demon race's Dao ancestor. However, he wasn't affected in the slightest. It wasn't to say that he was stronger than Zhao Su and the others. In terms of cultivation, Murong-yu was inferior to them. However, in terms of temperament and cultivation, Murong-yu completely crushed them. This was especially true for Zhao Su, who was easily invaded by the devil chi. His temperament and cultivation were too weak. Such a person would never achieve anything great. Ignoring Zhao Su and the others, Murong-yu returned to the side of the demon race's Dao ancestor again. However, he had already sealed this space. Therefore, the demonic chi wouldn't wreak havoc in other places in Hichu Luoshu again. What a powerful physical body. This physical body's strength has probably already reached the level of a Dao ancestor artifact, right? Murong-yu suddenly exclaimed. What level could the physical bodies of other Dao ancestors reach? Murong-yu didn't know, but this demon race's Dao ancestor powerhouse's physical body was quite powerful. Moreover, coupled with the astonishing destructive power of the demonic chi, the demon race was worthy of being a race comparable in strength to the angel race. It was much stronger than the martial Dao universe and the divine universe. Should I refine it directly or refine it into a clone? Murong-yu pondered. If he refined it directly, it would probably just be billowing demonic chi. It wasn't suitable for Murong-yu to devour. Would that be a waste? I'd better leave it to be refined into a clone in the future. Murong-yu instantly decided. He had a hunch that he would definitely have a lot of interactions with the demon universe in the future. If he had a Dao ancestor level clone, it would be beneficial for him to travel in the demon universe. If I refine the Archangel's corpse, it should be able to improve my realm by a lot. But if it's just like that, it seems a bit wasteful. Standing beside the Archangel's corpse, Murong Yu felt an incomparably powerful force constantly emanating from the Archangel's body. This force was very rich, almost 1,000,000 times more than the angel power in the angel universe. If the angel race's people cultivated beside this corpse, it would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. This was because the Archangel's corpse was slowly decomposing. The power that was dissipating was actually the accumulation of the Archangel's body. And as the accumulation was gradually consumed, the Archangel's corpse would eventually be completely annihilated. In addition, standing outside the Archangel's corpse, Murong Yu could hear the sound of the Great Tao. The so-called sound of the Great Tao was actually the Tao that the Archangel cultivated. Like the angel's power, these Taos were slowly disintegrating. This is all good stuff. If I can let Shenzhen's disciples cultivate near the angel's clone, they will be influenced by the sound of the Great Tao every day and comprehend it every day. I believe they will soon break through to the realm of the Great Tao. It will even help them break through to the realm of the Tao ancestor to a certain extent. Murong Yu's face revealed a look of pleasant surprise. The next moment, the soul clone appeared nearby. Then, the soul clone sat down cross-legged near the Archangel's corpse and began to be influenced by the sound of the Great Tao of the Archangel and began to comprehend it. At the same time, Murong Yu sealed this world. It slowed down the Archangel's decomposition. After he returned and left the angel universe, he brought Zhao Jiqing and the others in and cultivated near the Archangel. As for the demon race's Tao, ancestor expert's corpse, apart from the lingering demonic qi, there was no sound of the Great Tao. Even if there was, Murong Yu didn't dare to let Zhao Jiqing and the others cultivate near him. What if they were attacked by the demonic qi and became a demon race that only knew how to kill? Murong Yu's original body also began to comprehend near the Archangel's corpse. The realm of the Tao ancestor was already the pinnacle of the sacred universe. Murong Yu could feel that it would be difficult for even him to advance to this realm. Therefore, he had to start accumulating now. As long as he accumulated enough, he would naturally break through when the time came. At this time, the Wilderness Temple's universe had gradually calmed down. The angels had won a great victory and killed a large number of Tao ancestor experts. However, they did not kill all of the Tao ancestor realm invaders. In the end, some Tao ancestor experts rushed out of the Great Array and fled. However, this time, many universes suffered heavy losses. Even if only one Tao ancestor expert died, it was an unbearable loss. Force Gay out. In the Wilderness Temple's starfield, nearly 200 archangels of the angel universe gathered together. Nearly 200 archangels. Was this all the power of the angel universe, or just a part of it? Even if this was all the archangels of the angel universe, it was still quite shocking. One must know that Murong Yu knew that the Soul Clan's ancestor called Han Shao was a Tao ancestor in the sacred universe. Other than that, he had never heard of anyone else who was a Tao ancestor. The number of Tao ancestors in the angel universe was directly 200 times that of the sacred universe. With such a gap, even 200 sacred universes were no match for the angel universe. Murong Yu's angelic clone was also nearby. Looking at the 200 archangels, Murong Yu was a little puzzled. Why were they so sure that Gay was still in this starfield? However, no matter how puzzled Murong Yu was, no one could answer him. Archangel Sword, please! An archangel suddenly roared. Thus, the other 200 archangels began to make cryptic hand seals. Buzz! After a while, a dazzling light soared into the sky, piercing the firmament and piercing the 9 heavens. Chi! In an instant, a sharp sound pierced the air and came down from the 9 heavens. At the same time, a huge white sword broke the 9 heavens and fell from the sky. Plop! A terrible pressure shook the heavens and the earth. Murong Yu's angelic clone didn't even have time to react before he was suppressed and fell to the ground. Apart from the archangels, the rest of the angels fell to the ground. Moreover, Murong found that even the archangels didn't have it easy. Chapter 2269. In Hichu Luoshu, Murong was shocked. With his character, even if he was killed, he would not kneel. Although the angel avatar was not his original body, it was still dominated by his soul. His soul had an unyielding perseverance. This time, he was very unwilling to kneel, and his soul also launched the strongest resistance. But there was no way. When the giant sword appeared, his physical body was no longer under his control. He knelt down directly. Presumably, he was not the only one like this. The other angels were probably the same. The giant sword was like a high emperor, and Murong was a lowly slave. In front of Superior, he could only kneel and could not resist at all. Is that the legendary most powerful Taoist weapon in the angel universe? The Archangel's Sword? Although the angel avatar was suppressed, Murong and Hichu Luoshu was not affected much. Although the Archangel's Sword was comparable to the supreme power of the third Heaven Tao ancestor. But after all, it only emitted pressure and did not attack. After the He-2 and the Book of the Luo offset a portion of the pressure, the rest of it no longer had much effect on Murong. Therefore, Murong could directly look at the Archangel's Sword. The giant sword slowly fell and turned into a giant sword about 10 feet long and as wide as a palm. It was held in the hand of an archangel. The giant sword was simple and unadorned, but it exuded a threatening sword intent. White light flashed, and the sword light swallowed. It was very fierce. Archangel's Sword? The most powerful Taoist weapon in the angel universe? I like it, so I want it. Just after the Archangel's Sword appeared, a hearty laughter came from the sky. At the same time, a big crystal-clear hand broke through hundreds of millions of space-time. It came from a distance and grabbed the Archangel's Sword. The third Heaven Tao ancestor, Murong and Hichu Luoshu, could not help but exclaim. Third-stage Tao ancestors were at the peak of Tao ancestors, and their combat power was billions of times stronger than second-stage Tao ancestors. Because third-level Tao ancestors were so powerful, most Tao ancestors were only first-level or second-level Tao ancestors. There were very few third firmament Tao ancestors. In the previous battles, Murong had not seen any third-level Tao ancestors take part in the battle. Therefore, Murong was certain that the other party was a third-level Tao ancestor when the big crystal hand appeared. However, were there any third-level Tao ancestors near the angel universe? Who was that person? Was it from the giant universe or the demon universe? Murong's expression suddenly changed. The appearance of a third-level Tao ancestor made the possibility of Murong reaping the benefits of a third-level Tao ancestor infinitely close to zero. However, Murong still did not retreat. It was rare to see such a powerful expert make a move. If he could see some of it, it would be of great use to him. Where did this madman come from? How dare you steal the Archangel's Sword? Archangel's Sword slash! The Archangel with the Archangel Sword roared and slashed with his Archangel Sword. Swish! A shocking sword light appeared in an instant, splitting the world into two halves. In the blink of an eye, the sword light had already collided with the sparkling hand in midair. After an earth-shattering noise, the sword light was directly shattered. Meanwhile, the speed of the translucent hand also slowed down. In fact, Murong could even see that the hand was covered in cracks. The big hand was almost shattered. Sure enough, it was the most powerful Tao ancestor. Sure enough, its power is shocking. I like it. The hearty laughter continued. The big hand shook violently and grabbed the Archangel's sword again. The many archangels looked at each other and then made hand seals again. The next moment, the Archangel's sword suddenly opened the hands of the Archangel, and with his swish, it disappeared in place. Boom! In a flash, the Archangel's sword had already slashed on the big crystal hand. Asterisk crack, crack, crack. Asterisk immediately, cracks began to appear on the sparkling hand like it was made of porcelain. In the end, it directly shattered. The big hand of a third-level Tau ancestor was actually shattered by the Archangel. But what if the one holding the Archangel's sword was a third-level Archangel? Wouldn't the power be earth-shattering, invincible in the world? However, after defeating the third-level Tau ancestor's attack with one blow, the Archangel's faces did not look good. After all, the third-level Tau ancestor expert did not know how far away the big hand was in that universe. If the opponent came in person, how could they deal with it? Rip. Just as their faces changed, the void where the big hand originally appeared was fiercely torn open by a spatial crack. The next moment, a handsome young man with a warm smile on his face came out of the passage with his hands behind his back. Buzz. As soon as the young man stepped out of the spatial crack, the space around him began to tremble violently. Some even began to shatter. This was because the young man's power was too terrifying, and the surrounding void could not bear it. However, the next moment, the void around the young man no longer trembled. Looking from a distance, the void seemed to be even more compacted by him. This young man was the third-level Tau ancestor who attacked just now. The young man looked at the archangels and frowned slightly. Who dares to peep here? As he spoke, the young man's hand had already reached out in the air. After a scream, a figure was directly grabbed out of the void. It was Guy, who had disappeared. You are younger than me, but why are you stronger than me? Guy looked at the young man in disbelief. The young man's face showed a warm smile. What? Do you think you are invincible in the world? You don't allow me to be stronger than you? That's impossible. I'm a peerless genius. Who can surpass me? Guy roared as if he had gone crazy. The young man did not bother to look at Guy and let him go crazy here. Instead, he looked at the archangels, or at the archangel's sword. The archangel's sword is the most powerful doctrine artifact in the universe. I have heard of it for a long time, but today is the first time I've seen it. Why don't you lend it to me to play with for 2 days? Don't worry, I will return it to you when I have enough fun. The young man looked at the archangels and laughed. Borrow the archangel's sword to play with for a few days? When they heard the young man's words, everyone present felt that this was absolutely absurd. How could such a powerful and precious Tao treasure be lent to others? The archangels said nothing. They just looked at the young man with gloomy faces. The young man clasped his hands behind his back and smiled warmly at the archangels. You know how powerful I am. If you don't lend it to me, then I will have to take it myself. However, if I take it myself, I will have to play with it for a bit longer. Cut the crap. If you have the ability, then come and take it. Even if you're a third-level Tau ancestor, we have nothing to fear. One of the archangels could no longer hold back and shouted angrily at the young man. The young man still had that warm smile on his face, but he shook his head. I hate it when people yell and curse at me. That is why I must punish you. Whap! Before he had even finished speaking, the archangel who had spoken was sent flying. From a distance, one could see that half of his face was swollen. It seemed that he had just been slapped in the face by the young man. However, no one could see clearly whether this was the case. Everyone couldn't help but gasp. That archangel was a second-level Tau ancestor. He was actually slapped without even being able to fight back. Who was this young man? How could he be so powerful? Was there really such a big gap between a second-level Tau ancestor and a third-level Tau ancestor? Die for me. At this moment, a violent roar burst out from Guy's body. At the same time, Guy had already made his move. He gathered his strongest power and fiercely punched the young man's head. Guy was very powerful. He was already comparable to a third-level Tau ancestor. If his fist hit the young man's head, wouldn't the young man be killed? This guy is too despicable. He pretended to be crazy, then approached the young man and finally attacked. In the Hichu Luo Shu, Moronyu said somewhat disdainfully. Guy's attack was so fast that it almost hit the young man's head in a flash. At this moment, the young man suddenly turned around and looked at Guy with a smile. You probably think I'm as stupid as you. Don't I know you're playing tricks? As he spoke, the young man finally made his move. His big hand reached out and grabbed Guy's fist directly. At this moment, Guy was shocked to find that his fist didn't move at all. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't move. Do it, kill him. Seeing two third-level Tao ancestors fighting fiercely, how could those archangels not seize this fleeting opportunity, given that they were all smart people? They shouted. Nearly 200 archangels attacked at the same time, driving their archangel swords to slash at the young man and Guy. "You let me down." The young man shook his head and stretched out his other hand. Then he pinched the air with 2 fingers. Clang! After a crisp sound of metal clashing, the archangel sword was caught by the young man's 2 fingers. It was vibrating in the young man's hand. The archangel sword was equivalent to a third-level Tao ancestor. In other words, the young man was fighting against a third-level Tao ancestor, and he looked like he was handling it with ease. This strength was too terrifying. "I don't believe it," Guy roared again and again, his face extremely ferocious. The young man smiled slightly. He waved his big hand. The next moment, the archangel sword had disappeared. It seemed that he had put it into a space treasure. Puff! Seeing this scene, those archangels couldn't help but vomit blood. The archangel sword was the most powerful Tao artifact in their entire angel universe. It was the symbol of the angel universe. How could it be snatched away? How could they not vomit blood? It was good enough that they didn't die on the spot. Chapter 2270. After putting away the archangel's sword, the youth looked at Guy again. "You still don't believe me? Since that's the case, I'll give you another chance." While speaking, the youth had already let go of Guy's hand. Boom! As soon as Guy regained his freedom, he threw a punch at the youth. Too despicable. The youth let go of him and gave him a second chance. But this guy shamelessly launched a sneak attack. However, the winner was king and the loser was in the wrong. If the youth was killed by Guy, no one would say anything. However, could Guy kill the youth? Reality once again told everyone that Guy was still very far away from the youth. Although he was close at hand, and it was a sneak attack, but the youth just stretched out his hand and grabbed Guy's hand again. Kill him. At this time, the archangels had already recovered from their grief. One of the archangels roared. He took the lead and launched the light of judgment. At the same time, every angel present launched the light of judgment. They couldn't tolerate the archangel sword being taken away. No matter who the other party was, as long as he took away the archangel's sword, he must die. In a flash, a huge light of judgment appeared above the sky, locked onto the youth, and slashed down fiercely. "I don't know if it's the archangel's sword or your light of judgment that's stronger." The youth's face suddenly revealed a strange smile. Then his big hand grabbed the air, and the archangel's sword appeared in his hand. Buzz! Buzz! As soon as the archangel's sword appeared, it vibrated violently. It seemed that the youth hadn't subdued it yet. Well, the youth had just taken the archangel sword not long ago. How could he subdue it so quickly? However, even so, it didn't stop the youth from using it. Whoosh! There weren't any fancy moves, just a simple slash. The shocking sword light rose from the sky, and in the blink of an eye, it had already slashed on the huge light of judgment. With a kacha sound, the light of judgment was cut into pieces. The sword light only paused for a moment, and then continued to roar, erupting with a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth, and madly slashed at the angels. At this moment, including the archangels, their hearts were enveloped by an extremely strong aura of death. This was the sword light of a third-stage Tao ancestor, wielding an archangel sword. Even if all of them worked together, they still wouldn't be able to stop him. In the end, it was very likely that he would be killed by the young man's sword. At the moment of life and death, all the angels forgot about death and fear, and all of them revealed pious expressions. "Almighty origin of the universe, please bestow upon us enough power to slay the invaders." All the angels roared in unison almost at the same time. "As you wish." A cold, emotionless voice suddenly sounded from above. Then, a huge light suddenly descended from the sky, enveloping every single angel in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, the strength of all the angels skyrocketed. Tao Lords! Tao Lords! First-level Tao Ancestor, second-level Tao Ancestor, peak second-level Tao Ancestor. In the blink of an eye, all the angels present were no longer at the primordial Tao level. All of them had reached the Tao Lord level, making a total of 22 angels. Almost every one of them had received a huge boost. Those with lower realms would experience greater improvements. For example, the archangels who were originally second stage Tao ancestors didn't experience such a huge boost. Although there was an increase, they didn't reach a major realm. However, the collective increase in strength was still a little terrifying. Light of Judgment, kill the invaders. An archangel roared and unleashed the light of judgment again. Everyone followed suit and unleashed their strongest attacks. In the blink of an eye, a huge light of judgment was formed. It erupted with an extremely powerful aura. The current light of judgment was 1,000 times, 10,000 times, or even stronger than before. Even the young man's expression began to turn serious. This was the first time, Murong, you had seen the young man show a serious expression. Before this, the smile on the young man's face hadn't changed. It was obvious that the collective increase in strength of the angels this time was a threat to him. The origin of the angel universe? I'm really curious. After a few breaths of time, a warm smile appeared on the young man's face again. As he spoke, he looked up into the sky as if he was looking at the origin of the angel universe. Whoosh! The archangel sword erupted with a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth as it slashed out. Boom! A loud noise shook the sky. The archangel's sword light was shattered by the light of judgment. After the exchange of blows, the winner was obvious. Although the young man was powerful, he was no match for the origin of the angel universe. The light of judgment, with the power of judgment, whistled through the sky and smashed down. It wanted to kill the young man. Huh? The young man suddenly laughed. The origin of the angel universe is indeed worthy of its reputation. One day, I will refine you. Today, only my avatar came, so I won't argue with you first. When my true body arrives, I will refine you immediately. This was only the avatar of power. Everyone, including Murong Yu, trembled violently. A look of despair appeared on Guy's face. He couldn't even tell that the young man was only the avatar of power. How could he say that he was stronger than the young man? If he was an ant under the ground, then the young man was a giant in the sky. Before he had even finished speaking, the young man's body suddenly exploded on its own, turning into a stream of pure energy that disappeared into the world. At the same time, the archangel's sword and guide disappeared with the young man. He disappeared just like that? The angels looked at each other with gloomy faces. They all saw the sullen, angry, and helpless expressions on each other's faces. The angels were shocked and angry, but Murong Yu and Hichu Luoshu was almost scared to death. Just now, when the young man disappeared, a figure appeared out of thin air in Hichu Luoshu and appeared in front of him. It was not the young man, nor Hichu, but Guy. Why did Guy suddenly appear here? Could it be that everything that happened before was directed and acted by Guy himself? Murong Yu was scared half to death on the spot. Guy was a third-level Tao ancestor. How could he be a match for him? In the blink of an eye, Murong Yu wanted to push Guy out of Hichu, Luoshu, and escape. But when he made his move, he realized that Guy was already unconscious. He seemed to have been knocked out. What was going on? Murong Yu was shocked and puzzled. I know your target is Guy, but the Archangel Sword is of some use to me for the time being, so I took it with me. What do you think? Am I enough? A warm voice, like a spring breeze, suddenly sounded in Murong Yu's ears. It was a young man's voice. Once again, Murong Yu jumped in fright and hurriedly looked around. But he didn't see the young man. Don't look around. I'm not in your space treasure. I've already left the angel universe. Of course, I know you're curious about who I am. Why did I give you such a big gift? You'll know who I am in the future. Now, you'd better improve your cultivation as soon as possible. In my eyes, you're just an ant. If you want to know who I am, you'll have to at least reach the third-level Tao Ancestor realm. Just as Murong Yu's suspicions surfaced, the youth rushed to answer them. It's a little scary to accept such a big gift. Murong Yu was speechless. He didn't know whether to accept it or not. After all, the young man didn't look like he was going to harm him. But how could a person of this realm be seen through just by looking at their appearance? But it would be too wasteful not to accept it. Guy was the #1 genius of the primordial temple, a powerhouse. He could help some archangels reach the 3rd level from the 2nd level Tao ancestor realm. If he could master the method, he could let his clone break through to the Tao ancestor realm. But what was the method? It seemed that seizing Guy wasn't enough. He had to get the method to devour him from the archangels. Murong Yu himself didn't need it, but his 2 clones and even his dragon clone needed it. If he used it well, his 3 clones could break through to the Tao ancestor realm. In that case, I'll stay in the angel universe. Murong Yu immediately canceled the idea of returning to the holy universe. Anyway, he just needed to kill a large number of angels here to improve his strength. It would be much faster than cultivating in the holy universe. Disperse. An archangel waved his hand dispiritedly, ordering the many Tao realm angels to retreat. The angels all dispersed, and Murong Yu's angel clone prepared to leave as well. But at that moment, an archangel looked at Murong Yu and said, "Don't go yet." Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat. Did this guy discover something? However, Murong Yu calmly stopped in his tracks. "What's your name?" the archangel asked in a low voice. "Faust." Murong Yu calmly replied, neither servile nor overbearing. The archangel nodded slightly, then said, "You did well before. Do you have any intention of following me?" Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat. This archangel was one of the archangels who had appeared in the wild temple starfield. He should know how to devour or steal Guy's power. Didn't he need that method? Now, the opportunity had come knocking on his door. Murong Yu immediately became overjoyed and nodded repeatedly. "I'm willing to follow you, sir. I won't betray you. I swear in the name of the universe's origin." In reality, Murong Yu was cursing in his heart. He wasn't an angel anyways, so it didn't matter if he swore in the name of the universe's origin. "Okay, I'm called March. You'll follow me in the future." The archangel nodded slightly, then waved his hand and took Murong Yu out of the wild temple starfield, flying towards his own starfield. Chapter 2271. March Chi was one of the most powerful 2nd-level Tao ancestors in the angel universe. Someone like him was Murong Yu's target. The Pegasus Galaxy was where March was located. In fact, the angel universe's headquarters wasn't in the Pegasus Galaxy. However, the upper echelons of the church weren't usually in the headquarters, but in their own territories. They were all connected to the church's headquarters through teleportation portals. Therefore, when something unexpected happened, the upper echelons of the church would gather at the headquarters as soon as possible. A few days after returning to the Pegasus Galaxy, Murong Yu gradually understood why March had sought him out. It was because almost all of March's subordinates had perished in the great battle in the Wilderness Temple. On the other hand, Murong Yu's killing of the invaders was something that everyone had witnessed. That was why he'd been recruited by March. It was obvious that March wanted to cultivate Murong Yu into a trusted subordinate. This was a good thing for Murong Yu. Apart from finding out how to devour Guy, my angelic clone can also be a spy in the angel universe, Murong Yu thought to himself. He'd change his initial plan. Originally, he'd only planned to leave the angel universe after finding out how to devour Guy. But over the past few days, he'd seen how much importance March placed on his clone. This would allow Murong Yu to settle down in the angel universe, which would make it easier for Murong Yu to come and go as he pleased. Moreover, Murong Yu had a feeling that the angel universe wasn't as simple as it seemed. The origin of the angel universe was one thing, but Murong Yu wasn't the only one. Even the young man who'd been invincible back then had expressed great surprise. If the origin of the angel universe was so powerful, why didn't it have a 3rd-level Tao ancestor archangel? When he'd returned to the Pegasus Galaxy, Murong Yu had asked March about this, but he hadn't said anything. Murong Yu guessed that since the angel universe was so powerful, it definitely had a 3rd-stage Tao ancestor level great angel. However, why didn't any 3rd-level Tao ancestor great angels appear in the battle that day? In the end, Even Guy and the Archangel Sword were taken away by the mysterious boy? That was unknown. Furthermore, Morongyu is also plotting for the origin of the angel universe. So, even though Ma Chi had gone into seclusion as soon as he came back, Morongyu did not leave the angel universe. However, he still returned to the sacred universe and shattered universe. He brought Zhao Jiqing, Murong Xian, Zhang Ao, Duan Muqing, and the others into the Hichu Luoshu. He had them cultivate beside the angel's corpse. These people's aptitudes were not bad. Now, there was a Tao ancestor-level archangel emitting the sound of the great Tao for them to comprehend. Their gains were definitely huge. He believed that it wouldn't be long before someone broke through. At the same time, Morongyu also started to select those disciples with the highest aptitudes and talents in Shenzhen. He also brought them in. These people were Shenzhen's second batch of great Tao realm disciples. They were the absolute mainstays of Shenzhen. There were 10,000 people in this batch. Apart from Zhao Jiqing, Murong Xian, Zhang Ao, and the others, Shenzhen had the best aptitudes. As for the great Tao realm experts from the Sacred Universe Alliance that Murongyu had temporarily kept in the Hichu Luoshu, Murongyu did not let them cultivate near the angel's corpse. These people were not really loyal to him yet. In fact, some of them might even harbor resentment against him and be his enemies. Therefore, Morongyu would not increase their battle prowess. If he could control them, Morongyu would have a large number of ready-made great Tao realm experts under him. However, the loyalty of those people was debatable. Morongyu still believed in Shenzhen's disciples. Only Shenzhen, who had followed him to conquer various worlds and even various universes, was his most loyal comrade and brother. Only Shenzhen was strong. Morongyu was truly strong. Moreover, it seemed that because the divine universe had suffered heavy losses in the battle in the Wilderness Temple star field, they did not take the initiative to invade the sacred universe during this period. Therefore, Morongyu only left a power clone in the shattered universe to temporarily manage things there. As for his true body and his clones, they were cultivating. The divine universe did not attack. This was a good thing for Morongyu. What he needed now was time. As long as he was given enough time, he would have battle prowess comparable to a Tao ancestor. And Shenzhen's great Tao realm experts would also appear in large numbers. In the Hichu Luoshu, the sound of the great Tao rumbled, shaking heaven and earth. Near the archangel's corpse, over 10,000 people sat cross-legged on the ground with a certain distance between them. All of them had solemn expressions, and all of them had entered a state of comprehension. Morongyu's dragon clone and soul clone were among them. The incomparably pure angelic power filled the entire space. However, it was a pity that these people could not directly absorb the angel power. In fact, the angel power even caused them a certain amount of trouble, constantly attacking them. This made them unable to concentrate on cultivating. Morongyu's main body appeared. With a wave of his hand, the angel power was instantly isolated. Everyone could clearly feel the sound of the great Tao bombarding their bodies. However, the angel power emitted by the archangel could not continue to attack them. Then, with a thought from Morongyu, angels' tears continuously appeared above everyone's heads. The angel power emitted was also angel power. However, ordinary cultivators could directly absorb and refine it. Time acceleration. Morongyu activated the Hichu Luoshu's time acceleration ability again. This was equivalent to a cheat-like time acceleration ability. It could create a large number of great Tao realm experts in the shortest amount of time. Under the effects of the time acceleration, Morongyu could see the 10,000 people meditating every day. Every day, there would be new changes. With each passing day, his aura would grow stronger. Even if their realms did not increase, their essence, energy, and spirit were undergoing intense changes. Many years later, Morongyu even saw that even if they had not broken through to the Great Tao realm, there were traces of Great Tao realm auras on them. In fact, every cultivator below the Great Tao realm had the sound of the Great Tao reverberating from them. These sounds of the great Tao were extremely weak, and there were only traces of them. However, one had to know that even ordinary Tao lords could not produce the sound of the great Tao. That was a special ability that only Tao lords had. If these people have all broken through to the great Tao realm, then their combat strength will definitely be much stronger than ordinary great Tao realm experts. Moreover, the more sounds of the great Tao they have, the greater their future achievements will be. After all, they are comprehending the great Tao of Tao lords. Even if they are unable to become Tao lords in the end, there are definitely many who have reached the peak of the Tao lord realm. Murong Yu felt very gratified as he watched everyone's combat strength increase continuously. Meanwhile, Murong Yu's main body was not idle either. He was also comprehending the sound of the great Tao. At the same time, he was constantly devouring the pure angel energy emitted by the Archangel's corpse. This angel energy was like poison to ordinary disciples of the sacred universe, but it was a great supplement for Murong Yu. However, Murong Yu only swept away all the angel energy in the surrounding space when it had condensed to a certain extent. He did not take the initiative to devour the Archangel's angel energy. If all the angel energy was devoured, would the Archangel's corpse be annihilated? If it was, then Zhao Jiqing and the others would not have the sound of the great Tao to comprehend. As for Guy, he had only been sealed and had not died. Thus, his strength and the sound of the great Tao did not leak out. Rumble, after an epoch, Shenzhen's first disciple broke through. She was the first disciple to break through to the initial Tao realm after Zhang Ao and the others. This was a woman, Shenzhen's disciple, who'd followed Murong Yu since the cultivation world. She was completely loyal to Murong Yu. In reality, most of the 10,000 people here had followed Murong Yu since the cultivation world and the world of immortals. They were all geniuses and had not gradually become mediocre just because they'd entered a higher realm. Of course, if they'd cultivated on their own, they would have become mediocre in the world of immortals and gods. However, Murong Yu was very generous to these loyal people and was not stingy at all. Thus, not only did they not become mediocre, but their potential and talents were also constantly improving. It was exactly because of this that their loyalty to Murong Yu was unshakable and extremely firm. After the first, there would be a second, a third. After that, the number of Shenzhen's disciples who'd broken through to the initial Tao realm exploded like a geyser. In the end, after 100 epochs, all the 10,000 Shenzhen's disciples who'd entered Hichu Luoshu had broken through to the initial Tao realm. After 100 epochs of cultivation, the first female disciple who'd broken through had even reached the advanced stage of the initial Tao realm. It was extremely terrifying. Of course, after 100 epochs of time, Zhao Jiqing and the others who possessed superior natural endowments and talents to the second batch had gained enormous benefits as well. Even the weakest amongst them had reached the intermediate stage of the Tao Lord realm. As for Zhao Jiqing, she was the most heaven-defying and had reached the peak of the Tao Lord realm. She was only a step away from breaking through to the Tao Lord realm. Most of the first batch of 50 grand Tao realm experts had reached the intermediate or even advanced stage of the Tao Lord realm. Now, Shenzhen's combat strength was rather terrifying. He had more than 10,000 grand Tao realm experts. Even Zhao Su's original faction was far inferior to Shenzhen's. However, in terms of peak combat strength, Shenzhen was still lacking. All of this required time to accumulate. Murong Yu believed that if he was given some more time, Shenzhen's combat strength would completely surpass Zhao Su's faction. At that time, Murong Yu would be a legitimate elder of the Sacred Universe Alliance. Sometimes, I really envy all of you. Everyone was different, but they were at least at the low stage of the initial Tao realm. Murong Yu was speechless. After 100 epochs of time, Murong Yu had also broken through. However, he only broke through 1 or 2 minor realms and finally reached the 5th level of the Selfless Realm. Chapter 2272, Level 5 of the Selfless Realm. After hearing Murong Yu's words, Murong Xian, Zhang Ao, and the others who had paused their cultivation couldn't help but roll their eyes. In particular, the large black dog even barked a few times at Murong Yu to express his strong disdain. "Old Black, you want to spar?" Murong Yu looked at the large black dog with a warm smile on his face. The large black dog's body trembled, and he shivered. I'm going to continue cultivating. I won't come out of seclusion until I reach the Downward Realm. You guys have fun." As he spoke, the large black dog transformed into a black streak of light and shot out. Murong Yu shook his head and looked at the others. These people had the same reaction as the large black dog. After their bodies shivered, they all went back into seclusion and ran away. In the end, only Zhao Jiqing and the other women were left by Murong Yu's side. "Big Baddie, you don't want to spar with us, right?" "Humph, if that's the case, you can forget about getting on our bed for the next reincarnation cycle." Kurlon glared at Murong Yu with murderous intent. This time, it was Murong Yu's turn to shiver. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "How could that be? If I wanted to spar, I would go out and find those angels." "That's more like it." Yu Mengqing rolled her eyes at Murong Yu and then asked, "Big hoodlum, how strong is your battle prowess? How many vortexes have you fused with your strength and soul?" Hearing this, Zhao Jiqing and the others all looked at Murong Yu. A smile instantly appeared on Murong Yu's face. Look at that lewd smile of his. His battle prowess has probably reached the high-level Downward Realm, right? Kurlon looked at Murong Yu and giggled. Murong Yu's face darkened. How could his smile be so lewd? He immediately glared fiercely at Kurlon. "Don't interrupt. We're talking about serious matters." "I'm also talking about serious matters. Your smile is indeed very lewd." Kurlon did not back down. "Are you itching for beating?" Murong Yu glared at Kurlon. "Yeah, I'm so itchy. Come and hit me." Kurlon began to act like a hooligan. Murong Yu was defeated. Among them, no one could compare to Kurlon when it came to acting like a hooligan. Moreover, Kurlan's skin was far thicker than Murong Yu and the others. Back then, it was precisely because Kurlon had pursued him crazily that she had become one of Murong Yu's 5 wives. All right, let's talk about serious matters first. In the end, it was still Zhao Jiqing who spoke. Zhao Jiqing's prestige was still quite high. Kurlon, whom even Murong Yu could not deal with, was obedient after she spoke. "I've fused 5 million vortexes now. My strength is the same as my cultivation. My battle prowess has greatly increased compared to before. I should have reached the high-level Downward Realm, right?" Murong Yu pondered for a moment before speaking slowly. The 5 women couldn't help but look at each other. They knew that Murong Yu's battle prowess was freakish, but wasn't this too freakish? In the universe, it was extremely rare for someone to surpass a minor realm in battle prowess, and that person would be called a genius. For example, Murong Yu had surpassed 3 major realms. Moreover, as he fused more and more vortexes, his battle prowess would become more and more terrifying. It seemed that the general theory did not suit Murong Yu at all. "Big gangster, if this continues, as long as you break through to the initial Dao realm, you should have the battle prowess of a Dao ancestor, right? Go for it, big gangster." Yu Mengqing still could not hide her shock. "The stronger my battle prowess, the more difficult it will be for me to break through. I have a feeling that the Great Dao realm is probably the most difficult realm for me to break through since I started cultivating." Murong Yu waved helplessly. "Don't be discouraged. As long as you break through, you'll skyrocket. At that time, you'll be able to rush to the Chaos Controller realm in one go." Situ Xian also encouraged Murong Yu. "A primal Chaos Controller?" Murong Yu smiled helplessly. He especially remembered what the tyrant had said to him back then. Above all cultivators, under the Chaos Controller were the 8 Great Controllers. The 8 Great Controllers were Murong Yu's greatest obstacle to becoming the primal Chaos Controller. Perhaps those controllers had already discovered his existence. The reason why they did not make a move on him was probably because Murong Yu was too weak. Murong Yu was too weak and was not worthy of those high and mighty controllers making a move on him. However, As Morong Yu grew stronger, he gradually became a threat to the 8 great controllers. Perhaps when he broke through to the Tao Ancestor realm, or even when he only had the battle prowess of a Tao Ancestor, those controllers would not be able to resist making a move. Of course, Morong Yu did not tell Zhao Jiqing and the others about this. After all, he could bear this pressure by himself. There was no need for the 5 girls to worry about him. In the following period of time, Morong Yu let these cultivators who had broken through cultivate for a period of time. After consolidating their cultivation, he sent them back to Shenzhen. Continuing to cultivate would not do them much good. Moreover, they had already comprehended enough. They only lacked various opportunities. The second batch of great Tao realm experts had all finished their apprenticeship. The third batch of Shenzhen geniuses had also entered Hichu Luo Shu. There were even more people in this batch, reaching 100,000 people. Originally, the reason why the first batch only had 10,000 people. Morong Yu was worried that the sound of the great Tao was not enough. If there were too many people, too much would be taken away. Then, the time needed to break through would be extended indefinitely. However, after observing for many eras, Morong Yu discovered that the sound of the great Tao was enough to cover 100,000 cultivators. However, 100,000 was already the limit. Moreover, the second batch of 100,000 people was slightly inferior to the first batch in terms of aptitude and talent. However, Morong Yu was still confident that he could raise all of them to the initial Tao realm. It was just that it would take more time. Regarding this, Morong Yu did not care, because in Hichu Luo Shu, time could be controlled by him. A few hundred eras were merely a few years, or even a few months in the outside world. 10 years passed in the outside world just like that. Archangel March was still in seclusion. During this period of time, Morong Yu's angelic clone's combat strength had also increased extremely quickly. It had already reached the peak of the Tao Lord realm. It was the peak of the 22-winged angel realm. Regarding this, March's subordinates did not find it strange. This was because in the past 10 years, Morong Yu often entered March's treasure vault. Morong Yu did not stand on ceremony. He tried everything that could increase his strength. It couldn't be helped. Who asked March to value him so much? Before entering seclusion, he had given Morong Yu the authority to freely enter and exit the treasure vault. Of course, even if Morong Yu could freely enter and exit the treasure vault, he could only enter the outer area of the treasure vault. He was not qualified to enter the depths. That place was covered by countless formations and restrictions. If there was no way to pass through, no one could enter. However, what Ma Chi didn't know was that Morong Yu's original body had already browsed through his treasures. In fact, Morong Yu even knew what kind of treasures were hidden inside the cave. It was just that he had not collected any treasures yet. Once he fell out with March, Morong Yu would definitely empty March's treasure vault immediately. Whoosh! A message talisman descended from the sky and finally hovered outside Hichu Luo Shu. Morong Yu's heart stirred, and he opened Hichu Luo Shu. Then, the message talisman charged straight into Hichu Luo Shu and finally appeared in front of his soul clone. The soul ancestor has appeared. He's currently at the Sacred Cosmos Alliance headquarters, summoning all the deputy leaders and elders. After reading the message, Morong Yu's expression changed slightly. The leader of the Sacred Cosmos Alliance was said to be the strongest person in the Soul Clan, a Tao ancestor. However, Morong Yu did not know exactly which Tao ancestor he was. Even Soul Ancestor Hun, he did not know that person's specific realm. He only knew that he was called Hun Shao. He was extremely powerful. Soul Ancestor Hun Shao was the strongest Tao ancestor in the Soul Clan. Or was he the only Tao ancestor in the Sacred Cosmos? This person was very mysterious and elusive. Even Soul Ancestor Hun, Yi, and the others had only seen his power clone a few times. Last time when the Sacred Cosmos Alliance was established, Soul Ancestor Hun Shao had only transmitted a divine thought from across space. Without saying anything, Morong Yu activated Hichu Luoshu's teleportation function and directly teleported back to the broken universe. After leaving Murong Xian, Zhang Ao, and the others in the barracks, he released Soul Ancestor Hun, Zhao Su, and the others from Hichu Luoshu. Back to the broken universe. Everyone looked at each other. They were glad, but also a little disappointed. They were glad that they had all returned safely. They were disappointed that they did not gain anything from this trip to the Angel Cosmos. Soul Ancestor Hun glanced at everyone and said indifferently, "Now the leader has summoned all the deputy leaders and elders to wait for orders. Leave the barracks and wait for orders." Everyone was shocked. Those who originally had some ideas immediately gave up on those little schemes in their hearts. Now that the Tao ancestor of the Soul Clan had appeared, how could they dare to have any ideas? Even Zhao Su, who had originally been thinking of ways to kill Murongyu, couldn't do anything about it. Now, he could only look pale. However, he still did not give up on killing Murongyu. Murongyu also noticed the change in Zhao Su, but he no longer took Zhao Su seriously. If he still dared to cause trouble, Murongyu wouldn't mind squashing him to death. When Murongyu and his clone arrived at the Sacred Cosmos Alliance's main hall, everyone was already there. After all, the Wilderness Temple battle had ended long ago. They did not stay in the Angel Cosmos, but returned early. Third-level Tao Ancestor. When he saw the leader of the Sacred Cosmos Alliance, Soul Ancestor Hun Xiao, Murongyu was shocked. The light emitted from Hun Xiao's body was extremely intense. It was unknown how much stronger it was than a second-level Tao ancestor like Ma Chi. That was why Murongyu dared to determine his realm. However, Murongyu made a comparison in his heart. Even though Soul Ancestor Han Xiao was powerful, he seemed to be inferior to the mysterious young man who had appeared back then. Chapter 2273. Legend had it that the sacred universe only had Hun Xiao, a supreme Tao ancestor. However, as Hun Xiao had always been elusive, even the upper echelons of the Soul Clan rarely saw him. Therefore, no one knew exactly what realm he was at. No one had expected him to be a third-level Tao ancestor. This was simply too shocking. The angel universe was so powerful, but they didn't seem to have a third-level Tao ancestor. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been suppressed by the mysterious young man that day. Even a powerful angel universe didn't have a third-level Tao ancestor. The sacred universe was far inferior to the angel universe, but Hun Xiao, who was a third-level Tao ancestor, had appeared. It didn't make sense. Could it be that Hun Xiao isn't cultivating in the sacred universe? Instead, he's cultivating in other more powerful universes? Murongyu thought. He knew that in some universes, there would never be a third-level Tao ancestor. Just like the Saint's World, if one couldn't surpass the Saint's World, he wouldn't reach the rebirth realm. Ruler was the limit of the Saint's World. Very good, everyone is here. At least you're giving me face. Hun Xiao glanced at everyone and said indifferently. Everyone looked at old ancestor Hun Xiao with a grave expression, because everyone could feel how powerful he was. What do you think about the invasion of the divine universe? Hun Xiao said slowly. His gaze finally landed on Murongyu's face, which made Murongyu shiver. Murongyu didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that Hun Xiao's gaze had another meaning. However, Hun Xiao's gaze was very obscure. It disappeared in a flash, and Murongyu didn't react at all. However, Murongyu clearly remembered that Hun Xiao hadn't come in contact with Hun before he returned. So, how did he know about him? Was it because he stood out like a crane in a flock of chickens? However, Hun Xiao's gaze quickly moved away from Murongyu's face. Therefore, Murongyu thought he was hallucinating. Ancestor, let's maintain the current situation. Let's let the divine universe and the martial universe fight to the death. After all, the strength of our sacred universe is far inferior to those two universes. Hun, he was the first to speak. Among everyone present, he was the only one who was suitable to be the first to speak. The others all agreed with old ancestor Hun Yi's words. After all, this was the most suitable method that they had come up with after a long discussion. Forefather Hun, he shook his head. You are too conservative. I think we should immediately send troops to the divine universe and completely annihilate the cultivators of the divine universe. Take the initiative to attack. Murong Yu and the others were shocked. Wasn't this the same as using an egg to hit a boulder? The sacred cosmos had always been the weaker party. It was one thing for them to not be eaten, but they actually dared to take the initiative to attack. What? All of you are afraid? Ancestor Han Shao sneered when he saw everyone's shocked expressions, and his face was filled with contempt. Ancestor, the battle power of our sacred universe is indeed not strong. It is indeed not as strong as the divine universe. Han, he said again. In fact, what he was trying to express was exactly what Murong Yu wanted to express. That's because you guys are too useless. With me here, what do you have to be afraid of? I will kill as many Tao ancestor powerhouses as the divine universe comes. This matter is settled. I will give you a month to gather the strongest forces. After a month, we will directly attack the divine universe. Ancestor Han Shao gave the order directly. Then, his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. Everyone looked at each other, but in the end, they all left one by one. There was no other way. Who asked Han Shao to be their leader? Most importantly, this alliance master's strength made their souls tremble. Who dared to disobey? They might be directly killed by Han Shao. They had all heard of this Soul Clan Tao ancestor's ruthless methods. Go back and gather the strongest disciples in your hands. Pull them all here within a month. We will take the initiative to attack the divine universe. This is the leader's idea. I think everyone knows what to do. After returning to the broken universe, Murong Yu gathered all the deacons under him and passed down Han Zhao's order. Although many deacons were the upper echelons of the Sacred Universe Alliance, their positions were the lowest among the upper echelons. Therefore, no one dared to disobey the order. One by one, they all went to carry out the order. Sacred Master, should our Shenzhen bring more people over? Duan Muqing asked Murong Yu. Everyone else also looked at Murong Yu with a questioning look. Murong Yu shook his head. Our Shenzhen doesn't need more disciples. 1 billion people are enough. Moreover, this time, 1 billion people in Shenzhen will all be my personal guards. Without my order, no one is allowed to fight. Murong Yu directly gave a death order. Although Han Shao was a third-level Tao ancestor, if the sacred universe could produce third-level Tao ancestors, the divine universe might also have third-level Tao ancestors. Even if there were no third-level Tao ancestors in the divine universe, Han Shao would not keep attacking. The ones who risked their lives were these low-level soldiers, and Shenzhen's disciples were generally weaker. Therefore, Murong Yu couldn't allow them to throw their lives away. Moreover, Murong Yu could sense that there must be another reason why great ancestor Han Shao was in such a hurry to attack the divine universe. This time, it was very dangerous. Murong Yu has good potential. I think he has a high chance of becoming a Tao ancestor. Therefore, when we attack the divine universe this time, you must bring him with you. Don't let him take the risk. Great Ancestor Han Shao said slowly to Great Ancestor Han in the Sacred Universe Alliance headquarters. Yes, I will definitely protect Murong Yu. He is the hope of the Soul Clan, just like you. Great Ancestor Han, he immediately said respectfully. Even though Han Shao was very resourceful, he could not tell that Great Ancestor Han was one of Murong Yu's doppelgangers. This scene was clearly transmitted to the mind of Murong Yu's original body. This jade slip contains one of my doppelgangers. It can withstand the full attack of a Tao ancestor once. Give the jade slip to Murong Yu. Remember, I don't want to see Murong Yu die. Great Ancestor Han Shao paid more attention. What else could Murong Yu say? He could only accept such a thing that could only bring him benefits. However, he did not understand why Great Ancestor Han paid so much attention to him. Could it really be because of his potential? That might be possible. Or was Great Ancestor Han Shao plotting something? However, even if Great Ancestor Han Shao was plotting something, Murong Yu could only accept it. Otherwise, when the conspiracy became an open one, Murong, you would not even have a chance to mediate. A month passed in the blink of an eye. In the shattered universe, trillions of sacred universe experts gathered. It was so vast that one could not see the end of it. The lowest realm was at the true self realm, and most of them were at the selfless realm. In the sacred universe, selfless realm cultivators could already dominate a region. However, today, they were only the most ordinary soldiers. Once the order was given, the army of cultivators, numbering in the trillions, advanced in a mighty manner. Their mission was to pass through the shattered universe and attack the divine universe. Of course, before they attacked the divine universe, they had to destroy the army of cultivators that the divine universe had set up in the shattered universe. As the war had stopped, there was no conflict between the two sides for a period of time. Moreover, the divine universe had never thought that the sacred universe would actually dare to take the initiative to attack. Therefore, when the sacred cosmos army arrived near the divine cosmos army's camp, they were discovered by their scouts. For a time, sharp alarms sounded continuously, rising and falling. However, this time, the vanguard troops were all at the great Tao realm of the sacred universe. This was hundreds of millions of great Tao realm experts. When the divine universe scouts issued the warning, these great Tao realm experts had already rushed to the sky above the divine universe army camp. Kill. Almost at the same time, hundreds of millions of great Tao realm experts exploded with a loud shout. At the same time, waves of terrifying power poured down from the hands of these great Tao realm experts. It was as if the Milky Way had descended from the nine heavens. Pooh, pooh, pooh. The divine universe was powerful, but most of the people here were ordinary soldiers below the great Tao realm. How could they resist the power of hundreds of millions of great Tao realm experts at the same time? Everywhere the power passed, it was like cutting rice. Numerous ordinary cultivators of the divine universe were blasted into clouds of blood and exploded into pieces in the void. During this process, some great Tao realm experts soared into the sky with the intention of killing them. But how could ants shake a tree? How could a few dozen, or even a few hundred of them resist hundreds of millions of great Tao realm experts? Sweep, sweep, sweep. In just a few breaths of time, the army camp of the divine universe stationed in the shattered universe was almost razed to the ground. In the end, only a large group of peak Tao lords remained. They led some great Tao realm experts and fought as they fled. However, the peak Tao lords of the sacred universe had joined the battle as well. Even though the divine universe was powerful, it was only less than 1% of the divine universe's strength in the shattered universe. But now, the sacred universe had turned out in full force. Even though the sacred universe wasn't strong enough, the divine universe wasn't a match for them at all. They retreated repeatedly, and more experts perished. However, the small groups formed by those peak Tao lords of the divine universe were formidable as well. They charged left and right, and it seemed like they were about to charge out of the encirclement. The hundreds of millions of great Tao realm experts of the sacred universe were actually unable to stop them. Right at this moment, a cold grunt suddenly resounded from behind the sacred universe. In the next moment, a monstrous foot suddenly stomped down forcefully from above. Bang! The small groups formed by those peak Tao lords of the divine universe, who were putting up a desperate struggle, didn't even have the time to react before they were crushed by that foot. They were all crushed to death, and no one was spared. How powerful! Everyone who witnessed this scene was shocked. But in next to no time, the sacred universe started to shout loudly. Chapter 2274. The Alliance Master is mighty. The Alliance Master rules the world. All of them cheered. Even a portion of Shangzhen's army cheered. Other than Shangzhen's disciples, no one else cheered. Ancestor Han Zhao's attack was simply shocking. With a stomp, he destroyed the small team of divine universe that hundreds of millions of virtue realm experts could not do anything to. This instantly raised the morale of the sacred universe to the peak. It was also at this moment that Han Zhao's prestige in the sacred universe rose to the highest level. This was a world that worshipped strength. Whoever had the strongest strength would be respected by everyone. Of course, those who were evil and evil would not receive such treatment. Ancestor Han Zhao did not have a bad reputation in the sacred universe, and he was the alliance master of the Sacred Universe Alliance. Therefore, this stomp increased his prestige. Only Shenzhen's disciples were expressionless. In their eyes, even if the other party was 1,000,000,000 times stronger, it had nothing to do with them. The only person they respected was Murong Yu, the sacred master. Moreover, they all believed that one day, their sacred master would reach or even surpass Han Zhao's level. In fact, besides being absolutely loyal to Murong Yu, Shenzhen's disciples also had their own opinions and determination. They would not change their beliefs easily. All right, let's continue forward. Han Zhao looked satisfied when he saw everyone's performance. Although it was only for a moment, Murong Yu still noticed it. Murong Yu shook his head in his heart. So what if you're a third-level Dao, ancestor? You still care about these empty titles. If it were Murong Yu, would he also feel proud and high-spirited after receiving the support of all the powerhouses in the universe? After thinking about it, Murong Yu smiled. He would definitely not be high-spirited, because from the beginning, his goal was to become a chaos controller. Before becoming a chaos controller, what right did he have to be proud? What was there to be high-spirited about? It would not be too late to be proud when he became the #1 person in the endless chaos. After collecting the loot, everyone moved forward again. This time, they flew directly toward God Universe. Ancestor, the martial Dao Universe and the divine Dao Universe are currently engaged in an intense battle. However, there's still a large number of cultivators in the divine universe. Will we be ambushed on this trip? After all, our target is too big. Forefather Han asked Han Zhao. Don't worry. This time we destroyed the God Universe's army in the broken universe. They won't receive any news. Moreover, this time, we will directly go to the bottom of the divine universe. Forefather Han Zhao said indifferently. Han Zhao must have used a great divine ability to isolate this place from the outside world so that all the communication talismans in the divine universe could not leave this place. Therefore, God Universe didn't know that their army in the broken universe had been wiped out. By the time they learned of this news, the sacred universe's army would have already arrived. However, the shattered universe was extremely huge. It would take some time for the group of people from the sacred universe to quickly cross the shattered universe. Moreover, during this process, Murong Yu always discovered that. After they traveled for a while, Han Zhao ordered everyone to change their route. Murong Yu wasn't familiar with the broken universe and the divine universe, so he didn't know where they would appear in the divine universe after Han Zhao changed their route. Now, he could only listen to the orders. After half a year, Murong Yu and the others had already reached the end of the broken universe. In the broken universe, there was a dense death aura everywhere. Heaven and earth were gray and hazy. At this moment, light appeared in front of them. Looking from afar, there was light that made people see dawn. There were many origin stars that stretched across heaven and earth. There were birds chirping and the fragrance of flowers, and there were many cultivators. It was a universe. A divine universe? It didn't seem to be a divine universe. The divine universe was close to destruction, although the death aura inside wasn't as intense as the broken universe. It was definitely still filled with death aura. Heaven and earth were shattered, and it was a mess. However, the universe that appeared in everyone's sight was full of vitality. It didn't look like it was about to be destroyed at all. This was definitely not a divine universe. Murong Yu was sure of it. Many other cultivators were also certain of this. Therefore, they all had puzzled looks on their faces. Ancestor, it doesn't seem to be a divine universe in front, right? Are we going to attack this universe? Ancestor Han who was also Murong Yu, was the first to ask. A cold glint flashed across Ancestor Han Zhao's eyes. Of course, it's not a divine universe in front. This is a new universe full of vitality. What you need to do is to conquer this universe and make it our colony. Colony? Morong Yu's pupil shrank. He was a little resistant. If they were going to attack a divine universe, he would naturally do his best. However, the universe in front of them didn't interfere with them. Why would it take the initiative to attack? Become an invader? Attack another universe for no reason? What would the natives of this universe think? Back then, when Morong Yu found out that the divine universe was going to invade his universe, he was furious. Presumably, when the people of this universe found out that they were being invaded, they would feel the same as him, right? What was Hun Shao planning? Why did he want to invade this universe? What treasure in this universe had Hun Shao set his eyes on? Morong Yu muttered to himself. He definitely wouldn't believe that Hun Shao would invade this universe for no reason. A new universe. Could it be that Hun Zhao's target was this universe's origin? Could it be that he wanted to refine this universe's origin? This shocking thought suddenly flashed across Morong Yu's mind. This was just Morong Yu's thought. As for whether it was true, he wasn't sure yet. How could a mere selfless realm cultivator like him guess ancestor Hun Zhao's thoughts? Attack. Trample this universe under your feet. Following ancestor Hun Zhao's order, the Sacred Universe Alliance's army tore through the barrier between the two universes and charged straight into this universe called Purple Phoenix. It was still the great Dao realm powerhouses who made the first move. A terrifying power rippled out and swept in all directions. Everywhere it passed, the void shook and shattered. Enemy invasion! Enemy invasion! An ear-piercing alarm resounded through the sky. However, the cultivators at the edge of the universe had too low cultivation levels. They didn't even have great Dao realm cultivators. Hence, they didn't have the ability to fight back at all. A massacre, a one-sided massacre. Under the claws of the Sacred Universe Alliance, the cultivators of the Purple Phoenix universe were like lambs that were being slaughtered continuously. No one is allowed to attack without my order. Morong Yu's expression was somewhat unsightly as he gave the order. He was quite resistant to this kind of unprovoked invasion. However, this was an order from the Sacred Universe Alliance's leader. Who dared to disobey? Morong Yu couldn't order the deacons under him. He could only order his direct subordinates, Shangzhen's men, not to attack. This way, even if others found out, they would have nothing to say. This was because these were all Morong Yu's personal guards. Their purpose was to protect Morong Yu, not to participate in the war. One star region after another was trampled by the Sacred Universe Alliance's iron hooves. The cultivators of the Purple Phoenix universe kept dying unnatural deaths. Resentment soared into the sky and shrouded one star region after another. However, the native cultivators of the Purple Phoenix universe had come to their senses. They formed an alliance and started to resist the Sacred Universe Alliance's invaders. All Vice Alliance leaders and elders of the Alliance, come with me, Yi Futian said. Morong Yu was leading the Shangzhen army and cruising through the Sacred Universe Alliance's army. However, an enormous spiritual force traversed the void and pierced his mind. It was Patriarch Hun Shao. Is he finally going to reveal his purpose? Morong Yu sneered inwardly. Because of Hun Zhao's cold-bloodedness, Morong Yu didn't have a good impression of him at all. After a short while, the 10 deputy leaders and 100 elders of the Sacred Universe Alliance had gathered. Hun Shao didn't say anything. He tore a huge crack in the void with his bare hands and was the first to enter the spatial crack. Although Morong Yu and the others were puzzled, they still rushed in quickly. Patriarch Han Shao used a great divine ability to tear a crack in the endless chaos. Everyone followed Patriarch Han Shao and shuttled through the endless spatial crack. They didn't know how much time had passed. A moment? Or was it an epic's time? Here, time was mixed up. Whoosh! On this day, Morong Yu finally charged out of the spatial crack and landed on solid ground. At the same time, a slightly familiar aura rippled from the front. There was no killing intent or goodwill. There was no aura of life or intelligence. However, it gave Morong Yu a sense of familiarity. Muron, you had felt this aura in the cultivation world, the immortal world, and even the angel universe. That's right, it was the aura of the origin. Although the origin of the God world and the holy world was far inferior to what he felt now, they were all origin. Therefore, the aura was still somewhat similar. Hun Shao had brought them into the origin space of the Purple Phoenix universe. Was he going to refine the origin space? Muron Yu's heart sank. He knew that Muron Yu's guess was most likely correct. Although he hadn't seen the origin of the Purple Phoenix universe, Muron Yu could clearly feel its existence. It was billions of times more powerful than the holy worlds, but was far inferior to the origin of the angel universe. Help me refine the origin of the Purple Phoenix universe, and help me break through to a higher level. All of you will benefit greatly. I promise to make you the master of the universe of a universe. At this moment, Hun Zhao's voice suddenly rang out. Master of the universe? Everyone couldn't help but gulp. To become the master of the universe, one didn't have to refine the origin of the universe. He could control the billions of forces in that universe and control all living beings. If he had Hun Shao, who surpassed the third-level Dao ancestor, as his backer, it would be easy for him to become the master of the universe. We'll definitely do our best to help the Alliance leader so that you can refine the origin of the Purple Phoenix universe. Everyone roared in unison. Chapter 2275. Muron Yu also went with the flow and expressed his stance with everyone. Otherwise, if he didn't say anything, wouldn't Hun Shao be suspicious? However, could one really break through the current realm after refining the origin of the Purple Phoenix universe? Could one surpass the third-level Dao ancestor realm? Wouldn't that mean one had reached the controller realm? Muron, you didn't think so. There were only a few controllers in the world. Unless those controllers died, it was impossible for anyone to break through and become a controller. After all, every controller controlled one of the great Daos. World, space, life, destruction, war, and so on were all great Daos. They were all controlled by the 8 controllers. The Chaos Great Dao was the most powerful Great Dao among all the Great Daos. Only those with a chaotic celestial body physique were qualified to become a chaos controller. Hun Shao seemed to have been to the origin space of the Purple Phoenix universe many times and was very familiar with this place. Then, he led the group and flew in a certain direction. The Purple Phoenix universe was a newborn universe. It was still very young compared to the sacred universe. Therefore, the Purple Phoenix universe was not as big as the sacred universe. Universes would also grow. In the newborn period, the sacred universe was not as big as it was now. However, every one of them was like a cultivator. There were differences in aptitude. Those with better aptitudes would be able to grow even more. Those with worse aptitude would not grow much even if they reached their peak. Just like the sacred universe. Among the countless universes, the sacred universe was just an ordinary one. However, the angel universe's aptitude was better. Even among the countless universes, the angel universe could be ranked at the top. Then, why did Hun Shao give up the sacred universe's origin and choose the Purple Phoenix universe's origin? There were 2 reasons for this. One was that the Purple Phoenix universe's development potential was much greater than the sacred universe's origin. Moreover, the Purple Phoenix universe's origin was in the newborn period. It was relatively easier to refine. However, it was only relatively easy. Otherwise, Hun Shao wouldn't have brought all the sacred universe's powerhouses over. After a while, Muron Yu and the others appeared in the center of the Purple Phoenix universe's origin space. At a glance, there was a slightly illusory scene. A transparent shadow sat cross-legged on the ground. This was a young man who was about 15 or 16 years old. He looked exactly like a human, but he was even more handsome than the angels and demons. However, the young man did not emit any aura of life. It was because he was the origin of the Purple Phoenix cosmos. At the end of the day, the origin of the universe was just a pure energy, not a living being. As expected, The origin of a universe is countless times stronger than the origin of a small world. Murong pondered as he looked at the origin of the Purple Phoenix universe. Whether in terms of quality or other aspects, the origin of a small world was far inferior to the origin of the universe. Whoosh! Hun Xiao was the first to make a move. He extended his hand and grabbed at the origin source of the Purple Phoenix universe. A burst of power erupted from his hand and swept toward the origin of the Purple Phoenix universe, attempting to bind it. Wong! Hun Xiao's power was about to touch the Purple Phoenix universe's origin. However, at this moment, an inexplicable power surged out from the young man's body. After a muffled sound, Hun Xiao's power was shattered. At the same time, the young man slowly opened his eyes. What kind of eyes were those? They were black and white, transparent and clear, but they did not contain any emotions. The young man was the origin of the Purple Phoenix universe, not a living being. Therefore, he would not have any feelings for life. You again? You still want to refine me? It's been so many years, and you still haven't given up? I've told you, it's impossible for you to refine me. An emotionless voice reverberated. It was so cold. Hun Xiao sneered. I advise you to submit and follow me. I can make you stronger. Otherwise, even if I don't refine you, you'll be refined by others. Give up. No one can refine me. The Purple Phoenix universe's origin reverberated without any emotion. Attack! As he spoke, Hun Xiao attacked again. He extended his hand and grabbed at the young man again. At the same time, he ordered Murong and more than 100 people to attack. Murong and the others didn't dare to be careless. Every single one of them unleashed their strongest attacks and crazily attacked Hun Xiao. If they could help Hun Xiao refine the Purple Phoenix universe's origin source, they would obtain a great amount of benefits. Even if Hun Xiao could not refine the Purple Phoenix universe's origin in the end, as long as they tried their best, Hun Xiao would definitely treat them differently. Being treated differently by a third-level Dao ancestor was also a great benefit. Therefore, all of them worked very hard. The Purple Phoenix universe's origin began to counterattack expressionlessly. However, it seemed that he only dissolved the attacks of Murong and the others each time, and did not take the initiative to attack. But soon, the young man began to attack. All of you deserve to die. Not only do you want to refine me, but you also want to kill my people. You've completely angered me. I'm going to kill all of you. An icy voice reverberated. It was cold and filled with killing intent. These were only the feelings of Murong and the others. Even in a state of anger, the young man was expressionless and his voice was emotionless. Wham! The young man hadn't finished speaking when the pressure of the universe's origin space, where Murong and the others were instantly increased by thousands of times. It was as if numerous primeval mountains were pressing down out of thin air, and it suppressed Murong and the others to the point that their bodies emitted cracking sounds. Murong and the others had no choice but to withdraw part of their strength to resist the pressure. Naturally, their attacks were much weaker. And this was only the first step of the Purple Phoenix universe's counterattack. Swish! 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 Numerous sword rays and saber rays that contained destructive power appeared out of thin air, and they slashed madly towards Murong and the others like a storm. Bang! An elder-level Dao Lord was caught off guard, and a strand of saber light slashed forcefully onto his body. The terrifying power sent him flying, causing him to spurt out blood in the void. Swoosh! 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 The surroundings were filled with sword rays and saber rays. The elder-level expert was sent flying, and even more attacks swept over in an attempt to kill him. However, as expected of one of the strongest Dao masters in the Sacred Universe Alliance, he didn't panic in the face of danger. Divine weapons shot out from his body one after another, quickly meeting the attacks that were coming at him. Pooh! Although the elder spat out blood continuously, he still managed to block the attacks in the end. However, if this continued, they would definitely not be a match for the Purple Phoenix Universe's origin space. This was because they realized that the young man's attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer. Power of Faith / The young man suddenly shouted, took a step forward, and disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in front of a deputy leader, and then he slammed his fist towards the deputy leader's head. The deputy leader was shocked, but he didn't panic in the face of danger, and he also slammed his fist out. Rumble, after an earth-shattering explosion, the deputy leader's hand was directly shattered. The young man's fist slammed into his body, and his physical body was torn into pieces, and blood splattered everywhere. On the other hand, the young man was like an ancient war god, standing on the spot without moving. In fact, Moronyu even noticed a trace of disdain on his face. Was there a mistake? When did the Purple Phoenix universe's origin space become so humane? Moronyu looked over again, but he only saw the other party's expressionless face. When Moronyu looked at the young man also looked over. Oh no! Moronyu's heart was instantly enveloped by an extremely strong aura of death. Immediately, without saying a word, his figure flashed, and he quickly retreated. However, just as he retreated, the young man had already appeared in front of him, and at the same time, he slammed his fist towards him. An extremely strong aura of death enveloped Moronyu's entire heart, suppressing him to the point that he almost suffocated. 9 words as one. 9 words mantra, primordial great emperor, suppress all worlds. Moronyu roared in his heart, and he unleashed his strongest attack. The best defense was offense. Rather than passively defending, it was better to take the initiative to attack, and perhaps he could resolve the crisis. The space of the universe's origin space was directly torn apart. A primordial great emperor, who was more than 1,000,000 meters tall, broke through space and swept over from the primordial era. With a punch, the sky changed color. The primordial great emperor's appearance was always so timely, and he blocked the young man's fist with one punch. However, the young man was the origin of the Purple Phoenix universe. Although it was only a newborn universe, it was not something that a rookie like Moronyu could compare to. The primordial great emperor blocked less than a 10,000th of an instant, and he was blown apart by the young man's punch. However, it also bought enough time for Moronyu to retreat. Kill! Great Ancestor Hun roared and charged out from the side. His divine power was invincible, and he directly attacked the origin youth. At the same time, Hun Shao and the others' attacks had already landed. Bang! 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 Other than Hun Shao, everyone, including Great Ancestor Hun was sent flying. All of them were so shaken that their blood was churning, and they almost could not stand still. One could imagine how powerful the origin youth was. However, at least he managed to resolve the youth's sure kill attack on Moronyu. Moronyu, well done. Great Ancestor Hun Shao looked at Moronyu with admiration. Astonishment flashed across the depths of the others' eyes as they sized up Moronyu. They were also attacked by the youth, but Moronyu's reaction was actually stronger than the deputy leaders. Although it was because everyone acted in time that Moronyu's fate of being killed was avoided. At least in the beginning, Moronyu had already dodged the youth's attack in time. However, the deputy leader could not. Just based on his reaction at this critical moment, it showed that although Moronyu's realm was not as high as the deputy leaders, his actual performance was already better than the deputy leaders. Therefore, the deputy leader's expression was a little ugly. So much so that Moronyu could even sense a faint killing intent coming from him. Chapter 2276. Just because Moronyu's performance had surpassed his, he showed killing intent towards him. This was pure jealousy. This kind of person was too narrow-minded. Who knew when he would be stabbed in the back? A trace of killing intent flashed through Moronyu's heart. If he had the chance, he would definitely kill this kind of villain who was impossible to guard against. Otherwise, who knew when the other party would stab him in the back? However, no one showed it now. Refining the origin of the Purple Phoenix universe was the priority. Immediately, everyone joined forces again and attacked the origin youth. In the beginning, Although the Origin youth fought back, his attacks were still very unfamiliar. They did not seem like the attacks of a cultivator at all. However, the Origin youth's learning ability was extremely strong. After fighting for a while, his attacks became sharper and sharper. Moreover, the Origin youth's strength became stronger and stronger. In the end, except for Hun Xiao, no one else dared to act alone. Instead, they all gathered together and attacked and defended together. There was no other way. They were only Dao masters. They did not even have Dao ancestors. They were no match for the Origin youth at all. As a result, they couldn't even achieve their goal of tying down the Origin youth. Now, it was Hun Xiao who was fighting alone. If he could suppress the Origin youth alone, he would have succeeded long ago. Therefore, he was now a little flustered and exasperated. "You can't refine me, and all of you invaders will die," the Origin youth said emotionlessly as he attacked Hun Xiao and the others. At the same time, the Origin youth waved his hand, and the scenes that were happening in the Purple Phoenix universe appeared in front of Murong Yu and the others. The Sacred Universe's army was fighting the Purple Phoenix universe's army. Originally, the Sacred Universe's army was strong, and the Purple Phoenix universe's cultivators could not resist at all. However, the situation seemed to have reversed now. The Sacred Universe's cultivators, who had been showing off their might and killing the Purple Phoenix universe's cultivators until they ran away, were now tied. In fact, the Sacred Universe's army had been defeated on some battlefields. The reason was because the Purple Phoenix universe's cultivators' strength had increased. They were supported by the universe's origin. Furthermore, Murong Yu had seen that whenever someone killed a cultivator from the sacred cosmos, that person's strength would more or less increase. Although the increase wasn't as good as killing the invaders in Angel Universe, it was still better. Seeing this scene, Murong Yu was shocked. The cultivators of the Purple Phoenix universe also received the blessing of the Origin Source. After killing the invaders, they also received the Origin Source as a reward. Wasn't the Purple Phoenix universe a newborn universe? Did their origins have the power of the Angel Universe's origin? Besides a shock, Murong Yu finally understood why Hun Xiao was determined to seize and refine the Violet Phoenix universe's quintessence. The origin had already far surpassed the majority of the universe's origin. Given enough time, the Purple Phoenix universe would definitely grow to an extremely terrifying level. Refining this kind of universe origin was obviously much more beneficial than refining the Saint Universe's universe origin. In the Purple Phoenix cosmos, the cultivators of the Purple Phoenix cosmos were blessed by the origin of the cosmos. Coupled with the rewards from the origin of the cosmos, their strength would continue to grow. On the other hand, the cultivators of the sacred universe were greatly suppressed. First of all, they couldn't absorb the origin energy of heaven and earth in the Purple Phoenix universe to recover their consumed strength. Once they ran out of elixirs or origin crystals to replenish their strength, they would become targets for slaughter. In this way, the sacred universe would eventually collapse. Unless all the cultivators of the sacred universe retreated from the Purple Phoenix universe, it was only a matter of time before they were defeated. Or maybe Hun Xiao refined the Purple Phoenix universe's origin. But it didn't seem likely. Hun Xiao wouldn't let the cultivators of the sacred universe leave the Purple Phoenix universe, and he wouldn't give up the opportunity to refine the Purple Phoenix universe's origin. This was his greatest opportunity. He had the highest chance of refining the Purple Phoenix universe's origin. If he gave up this opportunity, he might never be able to refine the Purple Phoenix universe's origin. Lend me your powers and souls. Patriarch Hun Zhao's face suddenly revealed an anxious expression. He roared. Before anyone could react, an incomparably powerful soul pressure had already acted on them. At the same time, waves of soul energy pierced into their soul space like tempestuous waves and charged directly towards their souls. Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat. With a thought, he hit his true soul space. At the same time, he opened up another soul space in his original soul space and had a soul doppelganger stand guard there. This was an ability he'd learned after his strength had increased. He could open up a soul space that seemed both real and fake within his original soul space. In this way, even if someone invaded his soul space, they wouldn't be able to discover that his soul space was different from the others. After doing all this, Muronyu sensed that his soul doppelganger was being suppressed by an incomparably powerful soul force. It was even being controlled. Just like Muronyu, the others were in the same situation, even though they were peak Dao Lords. But Han Xiao was a third-level Dao ancestor. He was countless times stronger than them, so they couldn't resist at all. Their souls were directly controlled. Rumble. Even though over 100 peak Dao Lords weren't soul cultivators, their souls couldn't be said to be weak. The instant he was controlled, Muronyu saw that all of his soul energy had been sucked into Han Xiao's soul through the air. After he obtained the support of this energy, Han Xiao's soul strength instantly rose explosively. However, Han Xiao still seemed to be unsatisfied. All soul race cultivators, use your souls to strengthen me. Patriarch Han Xiao's voice passed through countless universes in space, and it directly resounded in the sky above the Han clan. It was even to the extent that every single Han clan expert heard Patriarch Han Xiao's roar in the depths of their souls. In the next moment, the souls of practically all the Han clan cultivators were controlled by an extremely powerful soul. In the next moment, endless soul energy surged over from afar, and it surged into Han Xiao's body like a tempestuous wave. Rumble. How many cultivators were there in the Han clan? In the trillions. The soul energy of so many people surged into Han Xiao's body, and Han Xiao's strength instantly rose explosively at a visible speed. 1 time, 2 times, 10 times, 50 times, and even 100 times. In almost a few hours, Han Xiao's strength had increased by 100 times. As for whether he had surpassed the realm of a third-level Dao ancestor, Muronyu did not know. However, he should not have surpassed it yet, right? Even if Han Xiao's strength had increased by 100 times. However, Muronyu felt that his strength was still a certain distance away from the mysterious young man who appeared in the angel universe that day. He was still not as good as the mysterious young man that day. However, this sound was already quite terrifying. Soul Han. His strength continued to increase. When it increased to about 150 times, it stopped increasing. At this moment, Han Xiao had already made his move. This time, it was not an ordinary attack like before, but a soul attack. An extremely powerful soul energy condensed into a soul hand, and it shattered the sky. It locked onto the Origin Youth and slammed down fiercely. Kill! The Origin Youth roared and threw a punch straight at him. Even though Han Xiao's combat strength had increased by more than 100 times, he was still not afraid. Bang! Bang! Han Xiao's soul hand was directly shattered. The Origin Youth was also directly sent flying. However, this was the first time the Origin Youth was sent flying. Muronyu clearly saw that after being sent flying, the Origin Youth's body, which was already a little illusory, was now even more illusory. It seemed that his strength had also disappeared, and a lot of it had been consumed. However, as the Origin Youth's body shook, an incomparably pure power immediately surged from all directions. In less than a 10,000th of an instant, he once again recovered to his peak state. As long as he was in the Purple Phoenix universe, as long as the Purple Phoenix universe was not destroyed, the enormous power in the Purple Phoenix universe would continuously support him. The Origin Youth's power was almost endless. Kill! Han Xiao roared and attacked again with a terrifying power. Han Xiao was a third-level Dao ancestor, and his combat experience was extremely rich. How could the origin of a newborn universe compare to him? In Han Xiao's storm-like battle, the Origin Youth was constantly sent flying. However, that was all. So what if he was sent flying? Han Xiao could not seriously injure the Origin Youth at all. If he wanted to exhaust the Origin Youth's power like this, that was basically impossible. It was precisely because he knew that it was impossible to exhaust the Origin Youth's power that Han Xiao let the sacred universe invade on a large scale in an attempt to kill all the cultivators in the Purple Phoenix universe. The more cultivators there were, the stronger the universe origin would be. This was because the universe origin could support them with power. The power of the cultivators could also support the origin youth. But now, Han Zhao's strategy seemed to be ineffective. Swoosh! At this moment, an incomparably powerful aura suddenly shot over from afar. In the blink of an eye, it had already pierced into the origin space of the Purple Phoenix universe. Bang! A large sword that emitted a dazzling light slashed down from the ninth heaven and directly slashed the origin youth's body. The origin youth was caught off guard and was directly slashed by the large sword. A terrifying power suddenly erupted, and the origin youth was directly sent flying. The origin youth was actually condensed from a mass of power, so it would not shatter like a physical body. However, Yu clearly saw that the origin youth was seriously injured. His aura had dropped by at least 30%. Moreover, although the origin youth was healed in time, it seemed that his foundation had been injured. Even if he was healed, he could not recover. It was like a cultivator whose potential had been injured. Even if his physical injuries were healed, his potential could not be recovered in a short period of time. What kind of attack could directly injure the origin youth? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.